it's taken my body down. But anyway, so, it was time.
Well, I don't know what I would do in that situation.
Evening, I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 15th, 2018 City of Oldsmar City Council meeting to order. If you'll please rise for our invocation and our pledge. It'll be led by our city attorney, Mr. Tom Trask.
Heavenly Father, as we exercise the right of self-government that we enjoy as free citizens of the United States, we pause to thank you for the freedoms given to us by the generations of patriots that have preceded us and who risked their lives so that we may live as free men and women. We pray for the members of the armed services for the sacrifices that they are making, that you will continue to comfort the families of those injured or killed while serving our country. We are hopeful that your grace and love will be with those who have suffered and with those present here tonight who share their pain and loss. This we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and once again, welcome. I'm trying to get this done early so everybody can get home and watch the Lightning game tonight. So, cheer on. Right, Deb, Paulie, wherever you're at.
I have a lot to say tonight.
Oh. Meeting adjourned. Oh, we don't have a quorum, darn it. Our first item is the Citizens Open Forum. We only have a couple of rules that you state your name and address clearly for the record. You keep it to no more than 5 minutes. You can address items on tonight's agenda. However, if you are talking on items 10, 11, or 12, those are public hearings, and we ask that you wait till those items are called, and we'll call you at that time. Having said that, anybody on this side of the room like to address the council? Gator? Mr. Poet Laureate, I should say.
Steve Gator Black, 2010 Hudson Court. The last few years I was in the military, I served on the honor guard, and I want to tell you that one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life was present a folded flag to a family. That is most difficult. And I want to present this poem to honor those folks. It's called A Rose on the Park Bench. There on the park bench lay a lone yellow rose, left by a young widow to mark the spot where they'd met. It was hard to say goodbye to that brave young man. They had been married for such a short time. She had wept when the major at her door had said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was killed while saving a trapped and wounded friend." Then the White House called and invited her to attend an award ceremony for her husband. A tear rolled down her cheek as she stared bravely while the president placed the Medal of Honor around her neck. They got a hero, but what have I got, she thought, a rose on the park bench. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else on this side of the room? No? Anybody on this side of the room? Whoop, boing, back here.
Good evening, Bonnie Thiel, 149 Gullair Boulevard. First, I want to say thank you again for voting to raise our speed limits. And Mr. Brightwith, we appreciate the fact that they were up 2 days after you people voted. Thank you very much.
Those two right there.
Thank you.
The big fella and Nan, but thank you for mentioning it.
Thank you. I saw another hand. Where? Oh, yep. Dave?
Here we go. You better get her.
Dave Tilkey, 505 Arlington Avenue East. Two things. One, I want to remind everybody that next Saturday, the 26th, is the annual Honor Our Heroes 5K run right here in Oldsmar, right here on Main Street. We're still not too late if any business wants to come up and help us sponsor the race. It's also not too late to register and run the race, and I invite everybody just to come on down to the start and finish of the race also. Be a great time. It's 8 o'clock on the 26th. Also want to remind everybody of the Memorial Day ceremony on Monday at 10 o'clock down at Veterans Park. Gator, you'll be pleased to hear. It'd be great if you can make it. We are going to be doing a flag folding ceremony and explaining all the steps of that whole ceremony as part of it. So it'll be a great time. So again, I invite everybody down to the Memorial Day ceremony. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave. And the race is Saturday a week? Saturday, okay. Good. Anybody else on this side of the room? Anybody else in the room like to address the council? Seeing no one, we'll close the citizens' open forum. Al, you've got something?
Yeah, Felicia, would you bring up our new Leisure Services Director, please? Is that addressing all of us?
I was going to say.
A little casual.
Don't get in the habit of wearing the suit up here, okay?
It's with great pleasure that I announce Chip Potts, our new Leisure Services Director. Chip has a master's degree in public administration from USF. He's a certified Parks and Recreation professional. He's been in Parks and Recreation 25 years, and most recently worked for the city of Largo for 15 years. He worked for Dunedin, he worked for Clearwater, he worked for Temple Terrace. So we are extremely happy to have his skills in recreation, athletics, landscape management, and community collaboration. So we're glad that you're here. So welcome, Chip.
Thank you.
Welcome.
You have to sing the USF fight song.
No, I just want to say thank you for having me here tonight. I look forward to extending my career here in Oldsmar, and looking forward to work with such a great team and great leadership. So thank you for having me here tonight.
Welcome, Chip.
I look forward to talking to Mayor Woody Brown and letting him know that we took another one.
Yeah, I was at Leadership Pinellas, and there's a couple of people who work for Largo who were in the class, and they're like, "You took one of our people." I'm like, "We do it all the time."
We sure do. Well, thank you for that. Next is our Mayor's Minute. Just a couple of items, a recap. Our annual city golf tournament, great turnout for the city's annual golf tournament, 112 players held at Crescent Oaks Golf Club this year. The money's raised help scholarship summer camps for children in need, and I understand we raised about $8,000, so that is great. And our team shot 22 under par, and we still lost, so I'm not sure how that happened. And the former Mayor Roniker shot 5 under, so I felt pretty good about that. So that's a win.
There's some value for being in office, huh?
That's right. Yes, there is. I got credit.
Couple mulligans.
Upcoming events, remember the Florida's Fall and Photo Exhibit. That is going on Monday, May 14th, which yesterday through May 22nd during library hours. The ribbon cutting ceremony is this coming Saturday at 11. If you have not had a chance to check that out, it is a great event, and it really brings to life the people that have sacrificed their lives for us, and with pictures and stories, and it really does tell a story. I know Al has been there. I'm pretty sure that all the council's been down there. I can't remember the number of fallen that she told us, but it's a lot. And it's, you know, when you see a picture and a name in Seminole, or a picture and a name in Tampa, and a picture and a name in Pinellas Park, or a picture and a name in Oldsmar, it's quite touching, so make sure that you check that out. Honor Our Heroes 5K Memorial Run, that was already mentioned. Is that the same one? Yes. Saturday the 22nd, May 26th, I mean. Yep, 5K run. Honor Our Heroes 5K.racehawk.com if they want more information. The annual Memorial Day ceremony is Monday the 28th at 10 a.m. at Veterans Memorial Park. Keynote speaker is Donald B. Carey, president of the Gold Star Fathers of Florida. Presentation of colors by the American Legion, Post 238 of Safety Harbor. National anthem led by Miss Mallory Gabardi. She does a great job. Full military honors, bald eagle on site, refreshments served following the service, donated by Frankie's Patriot Barbecue. Holiday closures, all city offices, library facilities will be closed Monday, May 28th in observance of Memorial Day. normal business hours on Tuesday. I'm excited to announce that I'm on the board of directors for the Tourist Development Council, and they're taking the show on the road. So the city of Oldsmar is hosting the Pinellas County Tourism Development Council here in our council chambers tomorrow. So that's exciting news. Project Pop Drop. This is our third annual Project Pop Drop, begins June 1st. Bring canned, non-perishable foods, toiletries, gently used clothing, Walmart gift cards to City Hall or any of our participating sponsors, and it benefits Oldsmar Cares. I know a lot of our banks and restaurants are participating in that. And also, just for the record, if you see the flag at half-mast today, it's a national honor for our fallen police officers day. So I think is that the correct name, Deb? Yeah, so that's why if you saw it at half-staff today, that's what it is. That wraps up the mayor's minute. Our next item is our CRA, and we don't have anything in that, so we'll jump to the consent docket. Couple items: approve the minutes of the April 17th, 2018 City Council meeting, approve the payment to legal counsel, request council approval to waive bid requirements and purchase storage building at the fire station utilizing terms and conditions of the NJPA contract. Item 4, approve the work order with WSP USA for water use permit renewal, PB 17-019. And the final item is approve the tentative agenda for June 5th, 2018. If nobody wishes to pull anything, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you. Next is the City of Oldsmar, and I know Al is excited about this. Item 6 is our innovation team presentation. Do you want to set it up?
Thank you, Mayor. Back earlier in the year, I had kind of a crazy idea, something I've been looking to do for a while and finally realized I was in a position to do it. So I sent out an email and I asked for anybody, the employees, that wanted to be involved in what I'm calling an innovation team. Real simple, tried to look at things that we do and see if we could figure out a way to do them better. Introductory meeting, I had 35 people, which was amazing and too many. But once we told them that this wasn't exactly going to be some reason to get out of work on Fridays, the numbers came down a little bit, but I've got 15 people. And we're in the midst of doing multiple things at the same time. But the process generally works that we kind of hatch an idea. We have 2 teams, and they study the idea, all elements of it, cost benefit, ROI, sanity, however you want to call it. And in the process, we actually found another superstar amongst our midst, Michelle Duggan, who turned into being an instructor for us because she had a great deal of experience in what's known as Six Sigma. Some of you may have heard of this, and it's a process analysis. It's a way to analyze things. It's exactly what we needed, and we're very grateful for what she's done for us. But for the first project, all of the members of the team had to dedicate themselves to learning how to analyze process. And that was 4 weeks, 5 weeks at least, and they were all very patient. There was a lot of work that went into it. Last Thursday, they made a presentation for our first project to me, and I loved it so much that I told them that I wanted them to present it to you. So with slightly further ado, I have Mo, June, Tom, Chris, Joan, Bill, Laura, and Kate. And am I missing anybody? Your daughter's here, isn't she? Well, she can't present. Can you present? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to them. It's a brief presentation. There's no decision to be made as far as the council required to do anything. I just kind of wanted to show them off because, as most of them would tell you, oh, I forgot Cindy and Garrett. Are you over there? And Felicia. And Bryn. Can't you guys sit together? And Buzz. I mean, Deb, sorry. So anyway, I'm very proud of this group. That's, I think, 10 of the 15. Did I miss anybody else? I'd like them to make the brief presentation. I just want to show them off because they're already off and running on 2 other things. And I told everybody at the beginning, prepare to get your feathers ruffled because no holds barred. They decide what they're going to look at, and they've interviewed all the employees, and we've generated some ideas already. And I'm so psyched about what they've done with this already that I wanted you guys to see it. It's not, we're not asking for you to say yay or nay to what the presentation is, but this was the first presentation that was made to me about a product. Is that good enough, guys? Take over.
Thank you.
Good evening. Al has already introduced our team, but I think it's very important for you to understand that this is it was a collaborative effort by all the team members, and it was a unique experience because we are all from different departments within the city, so it brought a whole bunch of different perspectives. So our first problem was the sandbag operational analysis. Our current process consists of the city receives notification that the sandbag site will be opening. The employees then gather the bags and tools, load the sand into a dump truck, and then they deploy to designated sites. Set up directional cones, open the site where residents pull in, park, do their own filling of the bags, they load their vehicles, and they leave. Once that's done, the sand and remaining equipment are loaded and returned to MSC at the end of the operation. Hurricane Irma last September gave us an enormous opportunity to reassess how efficiently and effectively we did this. We learned some facts from the forum. We had very long lines and waiting for the residents. The city ran out of sandbags after providing approximately 6,000 bags. Streets and stormwater staff were involved in the sandbag site along with the leisure services staff. There was 338 man-hours logged to the sandbag site alone. So our problem was, how can the city honor their commitment to provide residents the service of sandbags while minimizing staff time and labor? I will now turn it over to Joan.
Thank you, Laura. So, given our historical sandbag process and in consideration of the challenges that Irma presented to us, our task was multi-pronged. First, we evaluated the process. This is where the value stream mapping came in, and we did a lot of critical work on the process per se. We also investigated various sandbag equipment options. We explored other flood control methods that were out there, and then we arrived at our recommendations. The methodology was straightforward. We researched various approaches to home protection apart from sandbags, including expanding foam and sandless sandbags. There were a lot of other options out there. We also researched various pieces of equipment that would help automate or semi-automate our process. And that included product demonstrations on site where we actually got to use the equipment ourselves. We also got anecdotal evidence from customers, both in the private sector and other public agencies that are using the equipment. And we talked to customers that were using it. These are the top 3 pieces of equipment that we researched. The first one is the Sandmaster 20. It is a rather small attachment that fills, transports, and closes the bags. The middle piece of equipment is a rather large chute system. That's actually the one that was delivered on site that we got to play with. And the last one on the right-hand side is the Bircham Bagger. It is a chute delivery system also with a conveyor belt and a sew-shut system. And then we ran the numbers.
Oops, hello.
First chart here is the labor information. So we understand what we're looking at. The far left column is our current state, the current practice that the city has been using, okay? And then following to the right are all the pieces of equipment and how they compare and contrast. So that giant green bar In the first left-hand column represents our labor cost and current practices, okay? That number alone is more than 3 times higher than any of the other equipment labor costs. The teal box is the bags per hour, and you can see on the current practice, we fall significantly below the number of bags that we can make with the equipment. And then the orange box represents the labor hours. And again, our current practice reveals that we spend a significant amount of time versus having the equipment. The cost analysis shows us the relative savings associated with each piece of equipment with the cost beside it. Thank you, and now I turn it over to Bill Dennis.
Thank you. So the innovation team has an equipment recommendation to help with the sandbag process, and it is the Sandmaster 20 made by Barrier Systems. As she said, is an equipment attachment to a piece of equipment the city already has, is the Caterpillar. This device will provide a significant increase in sandbag production while giving a significant reduction in city labor. It has a small storage footprint, a relatively low initial cost, and minimal maintenance requirements due to having few moving parts. And we have a video that will demonstrate this device.
Save a lot of back injuries.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
They're tied.
boom.
It's awesome. Wow.
Pretty good.
So while streamlining this process and looking into different options and speaking to other cities and counties, the innovation team also recommends pre-filling and storing palletized sandbags during the off-season at a minimum of 2,500 bags. The bags have a 5-year lifespan. Pre-filling in the off-season creates a controlled sandbag filling process. There is no rush, which allows you to get ahead of the game. And getting ahead of the game creates a significant reduction in the residents' wait time at sandbag sites. And now we'll hand it over to Katie.
Thanks, Bill. Okay. As my colleagues mentioned, and kind of in summation regarding this, not only did we recommend a piece of equipment, but we realized that a slight adjustment to our process might really benefit the city overall. Particularly with using IRMA as our benchmark, we were able to make some mathematical determinations, some of which Joan reviewed. Essentially, the sandbag site was open for 40 hours, and during that time, we handed out 6,000 bags of the cities. Residents were also filling other vessels as they could find them to make more bags. With a little math, we kind of determined that we do about 150 bags an hour at a cost of about $1.21 per bag. By utilizing the mechanical assistance that you all just saw, we calculate that we should be able to reduce the cost per bag to at least about 80 cents. And in addition, reduce the man hours to fill 6,000 sandbags from about 200 to as low as 40 And again, as the operators get more comfortable with reloading the bags, that reset time can be reduced to as little as 90 seconds between a round of 20 bags. We also were able to determine that based on some of those numbers and the purchase price of the equipment, that it should be able to pay for itself in approximately 4 major Irma-like events, or about 21,000 sandbags. But possibly even more importantly than the equipment would be the update to the process itself. As Bill mentioned, by getting ahead of the game and pre-filling sandbags, we have the opportunity to significantly reduce wait time for our residents, which is really important, and particularly with the lineup at Irma, when everyone has a lot of other things on their mind, securing their property and their families. We think this will really help ease citizens' minds. In addition, that frees up city staff to be able to protect city property, as well as address other storm-related issues, as well as share the wealth of the work involved with the sandbag site among a broader array of city employees. On top of that, by reducing our labor hours and all of that work in 100% humidity, 98-degree summer months, there's obvious liability benefits to the city. The labor's more spread out. There's less physical exertion on our staff, and less bending, lifting, shoveling, things of that nature. And the city will be overall better prepared. Any questions?
I think it's great. First of all, I think that your team is to be commended now for spearheading it. I love the idea. I love the idea of stockpiling some sandbags. I can tell you, having talked to other municipalities, whatever you think about sandbags, whether they work or they don't work, it's a very comforting thing for the residents, and so for that, it's important. However, I know return on investment is really important. I'm not really excited about having 4 or 5 Irmas anytime soon.
No,
so
me either.
If it takes us a little longer, I'm good
Fine
with
by
that.
me,
So
yeah.
we could stretch
Hopefully we
that
never
out.
get it back.
Sand doesn't go bad, I don't think, so.
How much is the unit? Curious.
It's, the estimate we got from the vendor would be just a little over $10,000, which includes, because of the process of dropping them, like you saw,
Yes.
we do need to buy their bags. So the $10,000 includes, I think, the first 6,000 bags, the attachment itself, 2 of those pole loaders that you saw, they're called speed loaders, where you just throw the bags on and then they go directly in the holes. Is that everything that's covered? Yeah, 2 speed loaders, the first round of bags, and the equipment itself.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question, and I copy Doug's comments that it was a really great project, and I love it.
Yeah.
You said that majority of the cost will come from the bags, and I'm guessing that's an ongoing cost as we have to buy new bags as we fill them up.
The majority of the cost is actually really in the labor. The bag price doesn't fluctuate much. A pre-filled sandbag that you could go buy is about $4 a bag. So, you know, we use government contracts to purchase the sand, or we use spare dirt, because any old dirt will do. And the bags are around $0.25 a piece. So that price doesn't fluctuate much regardless of our current operation or any of the equipment that we looked at. That number was nominally different across the board. The real savings comes in how quick can you churn out the bags.
So I just have a question. Is there any thoughts, or was there thoughts in the process about sort of sandbag recycling? I mean, do we do that today? What do people do with their sandbags when they're done with them if there isn't a flood?
We did touch on that and ask, you know, what do all those people that came and got sandbags from, where did they go?
Yeah.
The bags do have a shelf life. Most of them are polypropylene. They can break down. Once they get wet, that helps speed up the degradation. We've been working with our sustainability coordinator because there is some question of cross-contamination, but I think that's only on certain types of bags, and that's pretty unavoidable. So at some point, you might have to just cut your losses, because anything on a shelf will only last so long. But basically, when you're done, you just pour the sand back in the pile and get yourself some new
Yeah, and
bags.
that's, to that point, I had talked to somebody, a vendor, and it had nothing to do with this. It's a friend of mine, and I think it was about the sandless bags. It's basically something that absorbs a lot of the water and things like that. The thing that I heard, and to that point, is that if they do get wet, that you kind of have some contamination, because you don't know what's in the water that's getting in there. You don't know anything like that. And you're better off just either putting it in your yard or doing something, or I guess maybe you take, I don't even think the landfill will take it. I don't think, I heard, so.
I'm not sure.
But yeah, but if
That
they're
would
not.
be the only area that I would think I would want to explore more, is like if residents return the bags, you know, is there something we could do with them or a way to recycle them or a
Well,
credit?
if they get wet, especially if it comes from the bay,
Yeah, they're contaminated.
they don't
Yeah.
smell very good after.
You keep them at Jerry's house,
That's something
historic sandbags.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Thank you very much.
I'm curious, the equipment looks pretty simple. What's the life expectancy of the equipment? Did they give you anything like that?
They didn't give us an exact life expectancy. That's one of the reasons that we recommended that particular item. The other machines had a lot of parts, motors, wheels, belts, needles, things that seemed like they might require a lot of care. And to your point, if we don't have any sort of event for several years, what happens when we go to start up the motor? This is literally just a set of hinges. It connects with a hydraulic line. So it's basically just a piece of metal that's been molded. So as long as we keep the metal good.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, great job. Really great job. You know, I was curious. I don't know if you looked at this, but I guess it's relevant to how much our citizens are taking when they come. I'm curious as to any estimate of how much time it takes a citizen when they get up there, get out, fill the bags, because, you know, they're not all real good at it, I'm sure.
We did, as part of the value stream mapping, we did try to assign time estimates to how long residents were there between waiting, getting to the site, filling them. And of course, there's a human, you know, our streets crew has proven with a stopwatch, because we didn't believe them, that they could fill a sandbag in 20 seconds. And they proved it pretty well. And some of them can sustain that level of output for an extended amount of time, which is very impressive too. I think a lot of people didn't end up taking the full amount of sandbags that they could, because you're tired and it's hot and you need to get out of there and do what else you need to do. I myself, you know, I'd say to fill 10 sandbags would probably take me at least 5 to 10 minutes, and then you got to get them in your trunk.
Yeah, there's going to be a real convenience factor to
Well,
that for a
from
citizen that's outstanding.
From experience, and you're trying to fight for the sand, and you got 15 other people fighting for the sand.
Right.
You got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and
that
I
would
mean,
eliminate that problem.
I was out there through part of that process, and just to be able to stockpile however many, 2,500, I think you said, or whatever we can accommodate.
Yeah.
That's huge, because I know they were backed up all the way to St. Pete Drive, and becoming less and less patient as the storm, you know, got closer. And so, at any rate, I think and sandbags aside, I think the process was great, what you guys did.
Terrific. I can't wait to see what you guys work on next.
Yeah.
Mayor, can I say one
Yeah.
thing?
Can we make recommendations?
Yeah.
I went to a seminar for the Florida League of Cities. It was called Resilient Cities, and it was done because of Irma. And one of the things they said in that presentation was each city in the state of Florida has to be ready for something like this catastrophic storm that hit us. And for you guys to be doing this project for the first time about doing sandbags, I commend you. I think it's fantastic. Thank you.
I think something else is even greater than that, is that a philosophy of a company or a city, and it's always been one of my philosophies, is that you make things happen before a problem comes up.
Proactive, yeah.
You don't wait for the problem to come up. And what you all have done here is incredible. And I can see in the future that you all can do something even greater for the benefit of the residents of this city. That's what we're here for. And to make everybody's job easier, quicker, and you all did it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
And I'll
Thank you,
ask one-
Al, for the team.
Yeah, great job. And I'll ask one last question, because we like to brag about our city. And I don't want you to answer if the answer is yes, but has any other city in Pinellas County done this? If the answer is yes, you can go sit down.
I don't know.
No,
Not that I
that's a
know
no?
of.
No, that was a no.
Definite
Thank you
no.
very much.
All right.
Oldsmar has always set the standard, and other cities follow.
Yeah. Well, I like when I go to my mayor's council to brag about our city, so this will just give us another little to brag about.
So kudos to Al for putting the team
Yeah.
together. I love it. It's a
Thanks.
great idea.
And I look forward to, you know, what else you guys can do. One kind of spurs another one, I think.
Oh, it
sometimes.
already has, and I didn't start them. I just wanted to say two other things. I'd love to read off the names. They don't care. I had to talk them into coming here tonight. two other points. Number one, the comment was made that we ran out of bags. Everybody in Pinellas County and most people in Florida ran out of bags. We got them as quickly as we could for the second round. Obviously, we'd never experienced as much damage that required that as we ever have. And I've been in the emergency ops for 30 years. Secondly, and I'm guessing John may salute this, one thing was not mentioned is the sheriff's office will probably greatly appreciate this because they're responsible for kind of policing the site. And they use a lot of labor and man hours trying to keep everybody from killing each other. So being able to even stockpile these in advance should help that, an orderly dispensing of them and that kind of thing. I think there's value to that. We didn't put a dollar value on that, but I know in Irma, the sheriff's office was spread very thin, and if they don't have to spend as much time on sandbag sites, John, am I speaking the truth?
Yes, and John Chestnut Park was even worse.
I was just going to say, I heard Chestnut was a mess.
That was they were very angry there.
Yeah, so I think that's great too. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out. In this particular case, now these guys are doing this with no expectations of anything other than, the affection of a grateful nation. And Large, you want to stand up for a sec? Nobody can miss you. This particular one, and I point out for him because this was really his idea, but what I want to recognize it because he just came to me one day and he said, look at this, what do you think about this? And that's really what kind of spurred me on, because I had it in the back of my head about something I wanted to do and mold it, and that when he brought that to me, I thought, there's the perfect first project. So Large, congratulations and thank you, guys. Thank you so much, and that's all he cares about. He doesn't care if you don't know his name and if you never see him, but I wanted to acknowledge that because that spurred me on. Now, the process is not complete. The process from this point, I got so excited when they showed it to me, I went, I'm in, we're doing it, where do I sign? We still have, the last piece of the process is we still go back to the affected department heads, which in this case will be all of them, but most specifically Nan and Public Works, for their evaluation, commentary, or whatever. My purpose tonight was just to show them off because I was so psyched at how they put this together. And I attended half the meetings and shouldn't have because I was yelling at them and doing all these crazy things. But I was just so excited with how they put it together. And they've got two other things they're already looking at right now. And I promise you, I wouldn't get involved in that. I'm not telling them anything anymore. They'll pitch to me. There'll be some pain. We won't be able to afford to do some stuff. This is not a panacea, but I couldn't have envisioned a better job out of the gate. And I wanted you guys to see that. That was important to me.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Well done.
Thank you, guys.
You know what, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure how much we should brag about it publicly, because everybody in Pinellas County is going to come here to get their sandbags.
We do try and screen them, and that's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
But, and then just a quick side note: do you ever call anybody by their actual name?
No.
Okay.
Sir.
All right. Next item is our presentation of the Council Manager Award. Our city manager has the option this year, so I'll let you tee this one up.
Well, we'd like to give it to the Top of the Bay Garden Club, and I'd like to ask Felicia Donnelly, our Assistant City Manager, to present the award.
Thanks, guys.
Felicia?
Thank you.
Hi, Bonnie. Would you like to come up and join me? Hi. Nice to see you. Hi. Hi, Sandy. We've met. Here's our award. So it's with great honor and pleasure that I get to present the Council Manager Award to the Top of the Bay Garden Club. The Top of the Bay Garden Club was founded in 1977 by Loretta Wyant and Jeannie Sitmar. There's 3 charter members that remain active today, or until today, and that's Betty Maltinos, Babe Wright, and Loretta Wyant. So thank you very much. They were a federated club, and that's important because they were a member of the Florida Federation of Garden Clubs. During the past 41 years, it's a long time, you all planted trees, you planted gardens, you shaped the landscape, landscapes of itself, the physical structure, and the landscape of Oldsmar. And you served as a root system for our community, and we're thankful for that. You planted trees all around the city. You donated them to many parks and many streetscapes. And one of the most important ones that you received national and state honor for was the Blue Star Memorial Byway marker in Veterans Park. You formed lifelong friendships, and you inspired children to be better environmental stewards and to learn about nature. You raised funds that sent about 10 kids for several years to Camp Wakiva, and Opapka to learn about nature and to understand their importance in the community and leadership. And although seasons change and you all are closing, it saddens us, we're happy that your legacy will live on. It will live on through the trees that you planted and the fertilizer you provided and your spirits to our community to support our community of natural resources, to make Oldsmar beautiful, and to support our residents' continuing environmental stewardship. For that, we're ever thankful. Thank you for your steadfast service and serving as an inspiration to all of us to Oldsmar. Thank you very much. And would you like to say a couple words before we call up all the rest of your members?
Loretta to come up and say a few words.
Thank you.
Aren't you going to bring them
I think
all
Babe
up?
should be doing this.
Bring them all up.
Well, yeah, come on up for a picture. I just sort of reiterate what Alicia said here. Back in 1977, a young lady named Jeannie Sitmer got with me at a chamber luncheon, and we said, hey, let's start a shop in Oldsmar, something for us to do. And I said, well, you get the paperwork and I'll get the people, because at the time she didn't know anybody. Her husband was Vic Sitmer, and he was the president of our first bank of Oldsmar, which was the first bank we had. And so we got it started, and it's been going for quite a while. I think that's quite a record from 77 to now. But we did disband this year, unfortunately. But all good things must come to an end, I guess. So anyway, we were happy to contribute to the city.
Loretta,
Yes.
out here in front of the building, to the far left, there's a tree out there with a sign on it that you all planted a long time ago.
Yeah, we got one behind City Hall over here too that we planted a long time ago. But I noticed the little plaque was gone, so I don't know who to blame for that, but we'll find it. But anyway, we've enjoyed it here, so.
We should also thank all these gentlemen and ladies for Brian, because he has helped us every time.
Yeah.
Since he was a baby, so he's worked hard.
Yeah, Brian Smith works for the city, and also Jerry's an honorary member. We have 2 honorary members. Jerry's one of them, and I think Dan and his wife are members also. So we got the city kind of involved, but we do thank everybody. It was really nice, and it looks like the mayor's coming forward here with some flowers.
See, this is something different. Usually they give us a flower.
Right.
It's our time to give you a
They got
flower.
tired of Doug killing them every time they
That's
gave them
exactly
to
it.
us.
One thing, Betty Maltinez, her husband was the postmaster here for years and years and years. 33 years. He had the post office down below us.
I'm moving so everybody, the candy's actually here tonight. Where do you want me, Dad? You all smell so good.
There you go, right there. There you go, Dorothy. Looking good. All right, say garden. Thank you very much.
Two of these people have served on the city council.
You forgot about that.
And Dorothy and Sandy Sears are both city employees.
Oh, yeah? Say that again, when you get?
So Miss Sandy Sears and Miss Dorothy were both city employees.
Yeah.
Longtime city employees.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Our next item is the presentation of the Public Works Week presentation. Proclamation, National Public Works Week, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are the vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of Florida, and whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedication efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees from state and local governments and the private sector who are responsible for building, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in Florida to gain knowledge of and to maintain a progressive interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the American Public Works Association has celebrated the annual National Public Works Week since 1960, now therefore I, Doug Beavis, Mayor of the City of Oldsmar, Florida, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through the 27th of 2018 as Public Works Week in the City of Oldsmar, and urge all our people to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the sustainable contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. Dated this, the 15th day of May, 2018, Doug Beavis, Mayor, and I will give this to Dan Bennett.
Other representatives, I brought Dennis Simpson, our city engineer, and Mo, who's here, from distribution and collection to represent.
You want to say a little bit too?
But there's actually 50 of us in the Public Works Department, and we're usually the first to arrive on most emergencies and the last to leave, but we're happy to do it. And this is a small representation. Unfortunately, everybody couldn't be here tonight, but they all work hard every day to make sure the quality of life is everything it can be here in Oldsmar.
Big fellow block party.
It might be big.
It's upside down. I'm just kidding. Made you laugh.
Mayor, Dave, Dan,
Yes. Go ahead.
they do a lot of work behind the scene that you never see. They're tirelessly working now to help part of the development in Gulliver Village. Your dedication and all of your work and all of your, whatever you're doing out there, it's been going on for about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. And it seemed to be something that was actually impossible. And you and y'all came up with a solution from St. Petersburg to make their lives out there a little better. Thank you.
You're welcome. We try to do it every day.
Star, are you here? Star was here.
Superstar.
Superstar. Our next item is approve moving Star from an alternate member to a full member of the planning board. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you. How long have you been an alternate member for the planning board?
I think we're about 6 months. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you for your help.
It hasn't been long.
Yeah. Well, good.
No, I'm really excited.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I've lived in Oldsmar for about 2 years. I recently got a bike so that I can ride to work a few days a week. I'm really nervous. That's a good one to share. I'm president of the community garden. I'm the class sponsor for the beautification club over at Oldsmar Elementary. And I'm hoping I can bring a lot of new green initiatives to Oldsmar to add to our plate.
Well, thank you, and thank you for wanting to be a part of the planning board. Does anybody have any questions?
I see that your attendance so far this year has been outstanding. Of course, we only have one meeting. But still, you were there. As an alternate, you
You're
were
also involved in the women's club.
I am, yes.
And Gabby was also in the organic garden when Gabby and Janice Miller started it. So congratulations on being the president. That's great.
Thank you. I hope you'll visit us. We have our monthly garden gathering this Sunday from 5 to 7. Bring a dish, make some friends, garden a little.
I loved the garden.
How long have you been president?
A month?
A month?
Yeah.
Remember we went there after an event, nobody was there.
Yeah, I can't remember.
There was a bunch of people there, but we didn't know anyone.
What really
Kind of strange.
What really bothered me is Gabby's plants would always grow and mine wouldn't grow. Hers was huge.
We can help you.
Well, we appreciate
believe you can.
all your commitment of time to the city, and I look forward to having you as a full member.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, not just the planning board, but for everything else you're involved in, just the passion for the city, which I think is great, that people want to be a part of this city, so.
I'll
Is
make a
this-
motion.
Is this the song or the dance to approve her? Or both?
Song
Your
and
pick, do you want us to do a song or a dance?
Can't do either. I almost lost my voice just saying that.
We need to come up with some city dance. Dance it is, yeah. Your motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Do you have any questions of us?
I don't. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you for being here, thank you.
Sir.
Next up. Next up is our city attorney.
Yes, we have two public hearings tonight, well, actually three, but I'm going to handle two of them. Item number 10 is the second final reading and public hearing of ordinance 2018-05. I'm going to read that by title only. Ordinance 2018-05, an ordinance declaring the intention of the city of Oldsmar, Florida to annex certain real property located in Section 22, Township 28 South, Range 16 East, further described as Lot 8, Block 10, map of Section Number 1, West Oldsmar, parcel number 22, 28, 16, 9, 6660, 010, 0080, into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar, and providing for an effective date of this ordinance. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2018-05 by title only, and it does require public hearing.
This is a public hearing. Does anybody wish to address this item? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing. For discussion purposes, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion on this item.
The time.
One at a time.
One of these years, we are going to own West Oldsmar, and all those skeletons out there that tried to sue us and shut us down, we win.
I read it at the last meeting, but I think we're over 50% of the land and 48% of the
parcels.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Something like that. I got a good memory. Any other discussion? Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Seidel?
Yes.
Councilmember Saraki?
Yes.
Councilmember McKee?
Yes.
Councilmember Beeverland?
Absolutely.
Mayor Vivas?
Aye.
Second and final reading of ordinance 2018-05, annexing West Oldsmar parcel number 22281696660. 0100080 into the corporate limits of the city of Oldsmar is adopted with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Item number 11 is the first reading and public hearing of ordinance 2018-04. I'm going to read that by title only, and then I'm going to ask another attorney from our law firm, Associate Rob Eschenfelder, to come up and tell you a little bit about this ordinance, the reasons why it's before you, and the necessity to adopt it. So I'll read that by title only. Ordinance 2018-04, an ordinance relating to the deployment of communications infrastructure, amending Chapter 58 of Part 1 of the Oldsmar City Code concerning right-of-way use by utilities and communication services, and creating provisions for right-of-way use by small and micro-cell facilities, amending Article 14 of Part 3 of the Oldsmar Land Development Code concerning telecommunications, antennas, and towers, providing for definitions, making related findings, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date. That was the first reading of ordinance 2018-04, and after Rob makes the little presentation, we need to have that public hearing.
Okay. Rob, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I feel a little bit sandbagged by
having to follow this boring presentation after all that great stuff. But I will be as brief as possible. I presume y'all have had a chance to peruse the draft ordinance. But as indicated in your findings, your whereas clauses, all the way back to 1927, the Florida legislature has recognized that while local governments hold in the public trust the public rights of way, that utilities, telecommunications companies, and so forth have, because of the good that they do for us and allow us to live our lives, have a right to go in and use those public rights of way. And so over time, as the utilities have become more sophisticated and so forth, that legislation has continued to occur both at the state level and the federal level. And of course, y'all are familiar under President Clinton that we had the Telecommunications Act of 1996, and which was one of the first real major strictures on what local governments could do with respect to especially communication towers. That was the big issue back in the 90s, and indicated that while local government can do those kind of regulations, that they have to do it in a way that doesn't deny the folks, the providers, the ability to provide. But as time moves on, technology moved on as well, and one of the drivers of why we're here today is because local governments around the country have adopted as strict as they could rules on the big towers that we're all familiar with, because nobody likes them, they look bad, and so that market pressure, the availability of real estate where you could build a big tower, plus technological advances and certainly the military's long deployments in the Middle East and their use of this technology has helped refine it. But has now come on the scene what's called micro cell or small cell technology, where you can, smaller networks basically can talk to each other and do that which larger cell phone towers or cell towers could do at a much lower cost. And especially as the nation is experiencing a lot more burden on technology. For instance, I have a 17-year-old who sits in her bedroom and streams Netflix, and that's got to come from someplace. That bandwidth has to come from someplace that wasn't even used, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. And so the providers of wireless services, which is not just voice anymore, of course, are really looking for ways to deploy a new ability to bring that bandwidth to citizens. And so the small cell and micro cell is where it's at. And so what occurred in the 2017 legislative session is that our legislature adopted the Advanced Wireless Infrastructure Deployment Act, which basically amends Chapter 337.401, which is the statutory regime that tells local governments what it can and can't do in terms of managing its rights of way. And that law put in place, it was very, if you read it, it was very mandatory, telling local government, you can't do this, you can't do this, you must do this, you must do that. And of course, the legislature is the superior legislative body to cities and counties, and so we kind of have to follow along with that. To the point where, in part of this new law, the legislature indicated that local governments shall, no later than January 1st of 2018, or 3 months after receiving a request to co-locate its first small wireless facility, make available through ordinances the terms and conditions of small wireless facilities with which the providers must comply. And so we're kind of already a few months late in doing that. There's no penalty, but that's part of why we really want to get this ordinance moving along. So to touch upon what the ordinance before you does, it is a fairly long ordinance, not as long as the sign code that I reviewed with you all recently. And this is the last ordinance I'm going to bring forward where you have to do it and it's long and boring. But anyway, it is first of all, your existing ordinances break into two areas. One is management of your rights of way. So this is providers, utilities, not just communication providers, but gas, natural gas providers, electricity, any of those folks that use our rights of way. That's one part of your code that is impacted by this new law. The other is the part of your code that deals with the cell towers and so forth, and they're in two different places in the code, but of course in the ordinance we're treating them all together because they're really a single topic. And so one of the major changes is that your code had indicated that city staff would do this and city staff would do that, and/or that the city council would make this decision or that decision. And of course, those were written back in the day when you had less professional staff and so forth. But we have, in working with our city manager and his really good team, we have decided that the Public Works Director is the best person to make a lot of those decisions. And so throughout this ordinance, you'll see that Public Works Director is inserted for some of those other decision makers in the past. There were a lot of procedures that this will happen and that will happen that don't happen here anymore and haven't happened in a long time in terms of how permits are applied for, either on the cell tower side or on the using the rights of way side. And so we went ahead and removed the outdated procedures where we found them. There were also some outdated, duplicative, or even inconsistent definitions as between the two bodies of law. And so I went ahead and made those as consistent as possible, took out the outdated definitions, and added a lot of fresh definitions that the legislature has created when they've been adopting these laws throughout the 2000s. Importantly, it creates a new section 58.94B and E. Those are two subsections which I've added because the sections, the provisions really provide a better opportunity for both the city and for private property owners whose property may be damaged whenever the utilities are building out. One of the common things is, that utility contractors often use direct boring, directional boring, and that can crack driveways and so on and so forth. And it's been very hard, in my experience with other clients, to chase down the utility because Verizon will point to its contractor, and then its contractor points to its subcontractor, and finally you're left with some uninsured guys on the street. And so these provisions that I've added make it very clear that whoever actually pulls the permit, the entity, the utility who the permit is pulled for the benefit of, is always going to be on the hook. And that's providing a better opportunity for us to go against them. And the other section actually creates a private right of action where if a private property owner is injured, they can actually go after them themselves if they so choose to do. So it's very good consumer, resident-friendly, business-friendly provision that we're putting in. And finally, and the big reason why we have to do this is that it creates a new Article 3 of Chapter 58 to address the statutory requirements concerning the placement of microcell sites in the rights of way. Again, those are issues of that the city has to approve these things if they're no larger than this and no wider than this and no taller than that, and those are all put in your code. Again, I will assume that you have read them. But that's really what we're here for. It's not a lot of earth-shaking change, and those policy changes that we have made are really driven by the fact that the legislature has instructed us that we have to do it that way. So with that, I will shut up and see if there's any questions.
Yeah.
This happened back in the 90s. I believe I was mayor at the time, and I believe you worked on this. Did you not, Tom?
In 1996, are you talking about 1996?
Yeah, whenever this first reared its ugly head, and that's the first time it happened. And we worked on this to make sure that those towers couldn't be put in your front yard and all that stuff.
That's right.
And so it looks like we thought we had done everything we had to do. It looks like with the way the government and technology is going this day, somebody's going to be doing this in another 8 years, another 15 years, another 30 years.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So thank you all.
Thank you. Any questions? I guess I just have two. Not that I'm for this, but devil's advocate, what happens if we don't do anything?
Well, the statutory provisions still are what they are, and so if any city or county maintains provisions in their code which are inconsistent with what the statute says, then the judge would quickly tell you to do what the statute says to do. So, when you have statutory changes like this, which are mandated, and it's not pleasant for you local elected officials where the rubber meets the road to have to just swallow what the legislature does. That's part of course, why we have League of Cities and the Association of Counties that try to lobby for us when these things are getting adopted. But because, the telecommunications industry is one of the best lobbyists there. I've been in Tallahassee lobbying against them when I was with the city of St. Petersburg, and we were fighting over at that time they were taking away our franchise fees, and they were wanting to do the communication service tax, and it was readily apparent who was winning that debate. And but if we don't do anything, we're still stuck with what we're stuck with. And so my counsel is always that your staff, your professional staff, are going to be faced with these applications. It is a coming thing, and a lot of local governments already are being faced with the applications. And so to have everything in the code read the way it has to read is the best way forward.
And not that I was for that, I just wanted to know what the repercussions were, and I think Nan would probably, this case in point was probably where it would put the onus on the contractor to make any repairs. Case in point, Commerce, what was it, a month or so ago when they were doing a directional bore and hit one of our lines? I guess probably under our current thing, there could be some argument as to who's liable for it, is that correct?
Well, certainly this code's going to make it even more stronger for us to go after them, yeah.
Okay, make it easier. So
You know, this has been, and actually the act got watered down a little bit from what was originally proposed. I know Dan and myself both lobbied up in Tallahassee against it being forced on us, which was, you know, what was the benefit of doing that? The benefit of doing that was that there was changes made to it in terms of limiting height, size, some of the other things like that.
Appearance, and appearance.
It's gonna keep changing.
Yeah.
And we need to prepare for it.
Yeah, I mean, we have to comply with it. It's a state law. You know, we took an oath.
And to be fair to Tallahassee, you know, I did put in one of your findings, a note that on March 22nd of this year, the Federal Communications Commission approved an order to streamline the national approval process for deploying small cell technology. And in that order, which I've read, it's extremely boring, but it puts the weight of even the federal government behind it. So you're going to have providers that even aren't necessarily going to just rely on the state law, but they're going to go right to the FCC and say, you know, this city or this county is blocking us. And so
Well, we want statewide wireless 5G type of connectivity, and so that's part of it. Our whole argument was that we get grants and spend millions of dollars on beautifying these roads, and you're not giving us any kind of real latitude.
To come up with inventive solutions. You're correct, Vice Mayor. But I will say, though, in my experience, that where I have worked, because I've already worked with some of these folks with other clients, and while the law is certainly written very mandatory, and their lobbies, you know, probably pretty much wrote this law, I will say that when the rubber hits the road with them actually filing applications, I have noticed that if the local government is really willing to work with them, that they will often work with the local government. They don't want to fight, they don't want to go to court, they don't want delay, they just want to get the systems out there. And so, you know, they will, you know, if you've got a certain little street light sort of scheme that you want in your historic district, they will spend the money and do that. So when that does, you know, finally reach Oldsmar, I think we'll be ready to engage with them.
Any other questions? Thank you. This is a public hearing. Does anybody wish to address this item? One, we'll close the public hearing for discussion purposes. A motion?
So moved.
Second? Motion and a second. Any discussion on this? I think we've pretty much had our discussion a little bit. Nope. Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Seidel?
Yes.
Councilmember Saraki?
Yes.
Councilmember Mickey?
Yes.
Councilmember Bieber?
Yes.
Mayor Beavis?
Aye.
First reading of ordinance 2018-04, amending Chapter 58 of Part 1 of the Oldsmar City Code concerning right-of-way used by utilities and communication services, and amending Article 14 of Part 3 of the Oldsmar Land Development Code concerning telecommunications antenna and towers, is passed with 5 votes for and 0 against.
Thank you. Anything
Thank
else?
you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Next is city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 12 is also a public hearing. It's the first public hearing for council to decide on whether to honor a request for an amendment to the existing development agreement between the city and Oldsmar Towns LLC, represented by Tony Tanico, who's here tonight. The amendment is required because the builder of the project has changed. The amendments proposed are found in your packet, and in summary are A, a change to the conceptual site plan, B, changes to the architectural renderings, which are found in your packet on page 135, C, the requested extension to the deadline for completion and submittal of the final site plan, and lastly, a requested extension of the termination date of the agreement. Excuse me. The project provides for single-family residential housing on city-owned property adjacent to the Oldsmar Library within the community redevelopment area. City attorney has reviewed the new development agreement and comments have been addressed. Staff is recommending approval of the amendment to the development agreement between the City and Oldsmar Towns LLC with the condition that the applicant provide additional elements to the architecture identified as colonial revival pursuant to Section 14.7 of the Land Development Code. The second public hearing will be held here at the June 5th, 2018 council meeting at 7 p.m. And I believe Marie Dauphiné is available to make a presentation if you'd like, or to answer any questions before we hear from Tony. How would you like to proceed?
Yeah, Marie, if you could, maybe point out some of the differences that are obvious between the previous submittal and this submittal?
I have like a brief PowerPoint.
That'd be great.
Is there 5 pages?
You heard all that, didn't you, Gabby?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, speakers are
Challenge.
right.
Okay, so the changes to the conceptual site plan include the amenity wall. There's a reduction in the front yard setback, and that is from the previous, or 12.5 feet to 10.7 feet. So it's going to be moved a little closer. The architectural renderings are different. And then, as the city manager said, the extension to fully complete and submit the final site plan would be from November 7th, 2018 to February 7th, 2019. And the termination date would change from June 30th, 2018 to June 30th, 2019. So this was the original rendering that was approved by the council, was Mediterranean Revival. The council accepted this rendering and felt that it was consistent with the adjacent parcel, developed with the library. This is the proposed rendering. That's a 6-plex, and that's the 4-plex. The applicant has asserted that this is colonial revival, and we looked at, the rendering. There are some elements of the colonial revival style. There's the symmetry. There's, I think, some porches, but it's not really something that the average person would say, that's a colonial revival building. So we are asking that he provide additional elements to make it more noticeable, or you can recognize it easier that it would be colonial revival.
And what are the types of things that somebody would recognize?
Well,
You could point those out.
Usually in colonial revival, there would be full-length porches. There'd be like decorative elements, so similar to this. So you'd have some kind of like little balcony or some window treatments. That pillars. The porches, I think, is probably the most, I guess.
For the original site plan, or the previous rendering, I mean?
Okay, this is Mediterranean Revival, so it's, he's going with a different
Right.
style entirely.
It definitely has a look to it.
Right. With there's a, walkway, porch area, et cetera. These are 3 stories, he is going with the 2-story. The units are a little smaller. I believe they're 1,600 to 1,800 square feet. So it's a reduction in the original proposed site plan. I think those went up to, what did they go up to, Tony? 20?
20, the original was 15 to
21, so. So, when you're looking at this, I think that it needs to have more of a presence on St. Pete Drive. This type of architecture is fine outside the CRA, but it doesn't really, we kind of talked about it at the workshop. It's not something that you would really say, well, oh, yeah, really nice colonial revival building. So that's our only objection.
Parking?
He has 2 parking spaces per unit, and it's going to be rear loaded according to the plan.
Parking spaces or a garage?
Garage. And there's a small area for parking, like guests.
Why don't we have that in the packet?
It's actually on the updated site plan.
It's on the last page, I believe. The very last page.
You talking about this?
Yes.
That doesn't tell me a thing.
Exhibit A. the updated conceptual plan, do you have that?
It still doesn't tell me a thing. I don't even know where they're parking.
That's what we're not sure of, how it's really going to fit on the lot.
If you're not sure of it, why are we even talking about it?
It's the same layout, I think, that the council approved, except the only thing that changed actually is the architectural style.
What you're recommending is that we downgrade.
No, we're recommending that,
We're downgrading from what he first presented. No matter how you look at it.
Right.
We're downgrading. I don't get it.
How deep are these units? Yeah, please.
Well, you want to wait till?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of it kind of goes with this. I mean, do we
well,
know?
it was hard for staff to determine based on this new rendering because we really didn't have the dimensions of the two-story, colonial revival, so we couldn't really measure it on the new, I guess, footprint.
And the reason I asked that, and Tony can answer it when he gets up there, is, I mean, when you go back to the rendering, I mean, there's a front door and living space, and, I mean, a parking stall is probably, what, 18
They're supposed to be
feet?
rear loaded though, but I'm not sure how it's gonna work.
But I mean, that would take up half the downstairs, I would think, right? I
I
mean,
think we probably need to ask him.
yeah, I mean, that's gonna be a question of Tony, but, I don't know how deep my garage is, but it's probably 18, 20 feet,
20
so,
probably.
I mean, I don't know what you'd have, I don't know. Anyway, okay.
We were just asked to look at, the change in the architectural rendering. This isn't like a site plan review or anything. It's just,
Well, okay. I mean, and this can be a Tony question too, but I know Councilmember Brevelin has always said this on other site plans, is that, you don't want to be shown one thing and then it wind up being something completely different, I don't know Colonial Revival, if it bit me in the butt, but these look like, I hate this, I mean, no disrespect, but to me, it looks like any townhome anywhere USA. It doesn't, especially when you look at the previous one. And this has nothing to do with our 5 options that we have. It just doesn't really.
doesn't fit in the town center. Outside the CRA, it might fit in, but not in the CRA and not adjacent to the library.
In the setback, it was 12 something to 10, was
He
that
had a
from our
variance.
code?
He had
So that was from the previous to now?
Yes.
Okay.
He got a variance in the front yard setback.
Yeah, which is not real material.
No, I just-
think. I do have a question for
Yeah.
you, Mr. Brown. What, can you maybe tell us, when you talk about additional colonial revival elements, looking at the rendering that he has right now in the 4-plex and the 6-plex on the revised, looking at this, what kind of new elements do you envision? Is there anything?
Well, that's what I had asked her.
Like a portico, or, an extended porch. I mean, these are more,
Extended porch be?
beg your pardon?
Where would the extended porch be? Because I don't see any porch.
No, that's really a stoop.
Okay.
That's not really a porch to me. A porch would be something where you could
Step with a
put
roof
actually chairs out there and so,
Similar to those.
Yes,
Those ones
yeah.
you gave, or even the previous.
and actually, the covering over the doorway, I don't think it could really protect somebody from the elements.
Well, the reason I ask you for specifics is because specifically, staff's recommendation would allow this to move forward, at least to this point, and then staff would be the ones who would find it, I guess, acceptable or not acceptable on what additional elements there are. So that's why I ask if there's something specific looking at this.
Well, it's a judgment call, as we talked about at the work session, we couldn't say, well, he doesn't meet any of the required elements of colonial revival, because he did meet some of them, but not enough that you could identify that as a colonial revival style.
Fair enough.
So I have,
Just a quick question to Eric's point, and maybe this is a Tom question. If we approve it tonight, we're relying on you. We'll never see this again, potentially.
No, we will not.
Okay.
You'll see it at the second hearing that you'll have in June, but it's going to come back just like this. I presume there are not going to be any changes for you to see the actual changes. So you would see them as it's being built.
yeah. And there's nothing we could do this evening in our decision that would ensure that we see it again.
Sure.
Yeah, you could make it subject to the second reading of the development agreement, that it looks exactly the way that it's going to be built. You can require that, obviously. You know, you don't have to enter into a development agreement without it meeting your.
Nothing to do about it.
Well, no, he's saying for the second reading, I imagine they probably would need more time than 2 weeks to maybe complete that, but we could specifically put in our approval that for the second reading, it would need to look the way we suggested or with, you know, the feedback that we gave before we approved the
If
second
it comes
reading.
back the second time, and they don't make too many changes, or they make, you know, Colonial is a round pole.
You don't have to approve it.
Dan, any thoughts?
I just want to see the part with the garages. I'm looking for a rendering to kind of visualize how that looks. What this reminds me of is, I'm from Buffalo, New York, so it reminds me a lot of colonial style homes and condos up there in upstate New York. But when I see those colonial townhomes, I can see the front and I see the back, and I'm concerned about the parking and the garage, and I just want to visually see that. That's all I have.
I have some comments too about specific elements, but I assume, Tom, I should wait.
Yeah.
This question's just for Marie.
Any more questions of Marie? Otherwise, we'll reserve the right to call you back up here.
Thanks, Marie.
Tony? You've heard a couple of the questions and comments. Welcome.
Well, hello, everybody. First, let me say ouch. Good evening. Tony Tanica, Oldsmar Towns, LLC, 36181 East Lake Road, Palm Harbor, Florida, 34685. Hello. I obviously, we're looking at the renders. I think we have a presentation to put them up on the screen. Hopefully you see that. We have, I think it shows a lot better in there. I don't know if you're looking at the printout. The quality, right in the back.
Yeah, the second pictures show better.
I'm glad to hear there was somebody from upstate New York say that it looked like Colonial. I do appreciate that.
Actually, it doesn't look like Colonial.
I actually grew up in a colonial home, and that's what it reminds me of.
Thank you. I do have this. I don't know if I could pass this out, Madam Clerk. This is basically an excerpt of the code highlighting all the colonial features. Everything you see highlighted is all that we meet with the colonial code.
I would like to see what he highlighted.
Can we
if
hand
that's
that out?
possible, Tom? I'm just curious, because I wrote down some things myself.
There's 10 copies there if you want.
Great.
Take one for myself. So while that's passed around, you'll see that that actually is an excerpt out of the code, and those are all the things that make a colonial revival in the town center. I will also note that when we first brought the Mediterranean revival to staff, that nobody was crazy about it. In fact, I thought we had better language in this staff report as it relates to our architecture than the first one. So for example, in the first staff report, it says the renderings that are included in the development agreement include some of the features of the architecture, and that was for the Mediterranean revival. Some of the features. And then in our new development agreement, it goes on to say, and if you give me a second here, I can find it. The language is stronger and says, I believe it says many of the features, as you'll see in that handout. So we actually do meet the code. I understand that everybody kind of fell in love with the Mediterranean revival, 3-story building. I did too. I always loved that building. I loved that. It was beautiful. Sometimes we want most what we can't have, and due to unfortunate circumstances beyond all of our control, that one is off the table. It's not to come back. It's not going to happen, much to my chagrin and apparently much to your chagrin. So it's hard to kind of take something away that we all got used to and wanted, and then present something else. That was a hard act to follow. There's no doubt about it. With that said, however, I do think that this is a colonial project. It certainly meets the code. And I honestly, when I first looked at it, I was pleasantly surprised at the render. And I thought, wow, that really looks nice. Is it the Mediterranean revival 3-story that we looked at and we fell in love with? No. Is it a project that I think is befitting of downtown? Bring some folks down there. Marie and I were having a discussion earlier. I have some ideas for your town center project that I was sharing with her. I've watched downtown. I'm in the development community. I think people are super important for down there. And so this is a start to that. It's this unique product again with the Muse. That sort of leads me into the garages and the depth. So these are actually deeper, okay? They're deeper than the other product. They do all have 2-car garages, and that's, other than being deeper, the site plan, as you'll see, is virtually the same. These are deeper, and they have 2-car garages, and that's exactly what the last project had.
Can you can somebody toggle back to the other sixplex, I guess it is? Okay, thank you.
Do you have renderings of the garages and the Muse?
Still a floor plan.
I don't, I'm sorry. I don't,
There
I'm
reason
sorry.
why there wasn't a floor plan included in the package that you submitted? Where you can actually look at what the layout is, so when you're talking about the garage, we see, oh, okay, this is where that falls. I'm not talking about the site plan.
Yeah, I understand. No, other than we didn't think it was required. I mean, my understanding of what we were doing was approving an amendment to change the architecture, right? So that's really the only reason, just didn't cross my mind.
That's fair enough.
So we talked about the parking, we talked about the site plan. It's virtually the same, only these products are a little bit deeper, which eat into the Muse just a foot or two, I think. And the garages really end up being the same. The parking's all the same. And so all that remains unchanged. In terms of staff's recommendation, yeah, I think my only concern is delay in the project. You know, we started this process in February of last year, so it's been about 15 months. Hindsight's 2020. Had that not taken that long the first time around, and I'm not pointing fingers at me, you, anybody, it's just the process. Those other ones may have been under construction, to be perfectly
You lost
honest
the
with you.
builder,
So-
though. I mean, the builder backed out of the project, right?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, but that was 12 months into it. Had that, process been cut in half, that builder could have been breaking ground on the projects, right? So the point I'm trying to make there is, in the real estate business, timing is everything. So the time is right, it's here, it's now, all the pieces of the puzzle are together with the exception of your approval.
You said the time was right the last time.
Oh, it was. Until circumstances beyond our control happened.
Can I ask you?
So if we delay, my concern is that something else happens, and for some reason, we never get back in front of you.
Well,
I'm
wait a
not saying that's going to happen, but certainly it could.
Mayor,
Yes.
I know this goes to the next item. You remember when I asked you last time?
Yes, I remember exactly what you asked me last time.
You're going to ask for another extension. You said, no, never. And
You
guess
asked if
what you're
I-
doing? You're asking for another extension.
You asked if I would be back in 90 days,
No, I
asking for
didn't.
another 90
I
days.
asked you,
and I
are
said
you
no.
going to ask for, when it comes down to it, you're going to ask for another extension. I asked you that, and you said, no, I'll never ask.
Well, and I apologize. The reason for the extension is just to get us through the second reading. In fact, a few days after, and hopefully the city manager can attest to this, a few days after we, I think, agreed to that date, I said, maybe we should have went to the June 5th hearing with the extension.
Well,
So we're just really 6 days short, Councilman.
Ask for another extension, no matter how you look at it.
Yes, sir.
I just cannot, and I will not vote for a downgrade. And that, y'all do whatever you want. I'm a history buff on the 18th century, which is 1700s. This looks nothing like the colonial of the 1700s. Nothing. Anyway, and I thought the Mediterranean revival was incredible. I voted against it for a different reason. Now, I'm going to vote against this for this reason.
Yeah.
We're downgrading.
Okay. Yeah, and let's just keep our opinions as to how we'll vote to ourselves at this point. But
No,
that's
I
fine.
can say my opinion.
I have a
Go ahead.
few questions. So from my understanding, these units are smaller, which I think from the previous one, which is fine. I think they're larger than some of the Hayes Park Village units, so I don't think the size is the issue. But did the number of units increase compared to the previous one? I'm trying to understand how the units got smaller And they're 2-story versus 3-story. What changed in the dimensions or?
Well, what happened, the other units were 15 to 2100. So these are 16 to 1800. So the smallest unit on the other side, we're a little bit larger than that. The way that got accommodated on 2-story versus 3-story is what I talked about earlier, is that they got deeper, so they got longer. So that's how we took up that square footage in the 2-story.
Okay.
Okay.
I have some comments or discussion about the features. Tom, is this?
Can you ask
No.
questions? Just ask
Questions right
questions
now.
of her?
Okay.
And then we'll discuss.
Public first.
I'm trying to figure out how to pose this into a question, but I know you handed these things around, the code and the guidelines, and what I saw was like prominent porticos. I don't know if, I guess my question to you would you consider what's in the rendering a prominent portico, an elaborate or eloquent entrance to the home?
What I call the porticos prominent.
Yes.
I think that's a relative term. I mean, compared to some of the ones that we saw on the pictures tonight, no,
Okay.
there's not.
Yeah, and I took that from our guidelines. Those were
Yeah.
words that were in our guidelines.
Yes.
Colonial revival is certainly, I'm trying to sort of eliminate my comments, but there are elements in here that are colonial revival.
Yes.
But there are missing some details that really make it a colonial revival or make it identify as a colonial revival. Are there any fireplaces or chimneys planned for any of the units?
No.
Okay. The guest parking, I believe what I read was that there was only 10 guest parking spaces?
I don't have the exact number. We do have the site plan here. I can count them. But basically that is the same as what was prior.
Okay.
So that didn't change.
But was the guest parking in the previous rendering all in the back by the amenity area, or was there?
That's correct. The guest parking is by the amenity area.
Okay, and
That's
was it
correct.
still 10 spaces that didn't change? The number of guest parking spaces didn't change?
That's correct.
Okay. And then question around the amenity area. Do you have any idea what is currently being proposed in the amenity area?
Yeah, that's part of the development agreement. It's what we, if you recall, we kind of discussed that. It's similar to what you see out of Tuscany Woods.
Okay. Which would include what items?
The cobblestone vinyl look with the landscaping on the exterior.
But what, like, amenities are actually
Oh, the
in it?
amenities.
Yeah.
Oh, the amenities would be the same as a passive park-like area. So no, we haven't gotten to the detail of what that, but it's envisioned to be the same amenity.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then I guess my last question, since more of what I have, well, actually, elevation and steps, the entrance. So I know it said would include steps in a future rendering.
Yes.
How do you plan to accommodate for the elevation and the requirements there?
Exactly as we were last time. We don't have the engineering done, so we can't necessarily depict that, but certainly, and the other thing that's not depicted in here, by the way, is some ornamental trees, right? So we didn't want to block the rendering with trees, and so you're going to see some of that in the final product. But to answer your question, so there'll be stem walls, and there's approximately a 2 to 3 foot elevation difference between the existing ground, or what will be the existing ground, and the finished floor of the unit. So that will be transitioned via steps.
Okay, and why is there not like a front porch or a side porch? Because in the colonial revival, I honestly haven't seen any. Some of them don't have front porches, but they all have sort of a side porch or sunroom. Was there a reason that there aren't any porches or side porches?
This is the product that we have before you tonight that we're asking for the vote on. So, we've heard from some folks along the way, and I think everybody kind of has their own idea as to how to make it look better. The challenge for us is that's hard. I mean, if we let everybody kind of design the product, I guarantee you it'll look terrible. There was no real thought as to why or why not. This is just the product that's being proposed for that project by, a very well-known, reputable, one of the largest builders in the United States who knows their model, knows what they can sell, knows the market, studied it, and, and after all that, this is what we propose.
So based on that comment, I would ask you, and I say this because I just returned from a place that brings thousands of people every year because their city did a very good job at establishing a sense of place. And one of the main reasons that thousands of people go there is because of one building that was built in the 1800s and that was designed with sort of a classical architecture that still to this day remains. And so my question to you is, if you were only allowed to have this as your legacy as a developer within the city, whether it was Oldsmar or any city, is this the legacy that you would want to leave here? So 100, 500 years from now, do you feel like this design is special, unique, creates a sense of place that no other city has, that would draw people to your downtown? Would you do anything different if you knew that this was the only thing that you could build?
I would love to build one of those buildings. In fact, I'd love to do it on your town center property that you're trying to do. I think that's the appropriate place for that. I don't think this is the site for a legacy building. I don't think it is. I don't think it will be. It's just not. I mean, it's not that city. I think we all have to kind of be realistic with where the site is, what it is, and what it can accommodate. You know, we can't accommodate a legacy $800,000 townhomes. I'd love to bring them to you. There'd be nothing better for me to come in here with a path of least resistance and just show you the Taj Mahal and say we're going to build it. But reality says a different thing. So unfortunately, the answer to that question is no.
I would like to top on what you just said. We built a library for a legacy. And you want to build these next to the legacy that we built for in 25 or 30 or 40 years, that library is still going to be the legacy that we built.
I understand. Well, I guess maybe let me clarify that. My vision of a legacy building is something that I would see in New York that has gargoyles and limestones and is, 150 stories tall and is the Chrysler Building or the Empire State Building. When I hear legacy building, that's what comes to my mind, not the Oldsmar Library. So maybe there's a difference of what we envisioned.
We have about 30 or 40 or 45 houses in this town that to me are legacies that started this city of Oldsmar.
Fair.
Just, I would say that not necessarily Oldsmar's legacy, but your own legacy. And it is in our downtown, so I know a lot of people don't consider maybe that part downtown, but what we're planning for in the future is that this street will connect to that street onto Bayview. So, it's mixed use, it's, residential.
And I think that fits perfectly in here. I really do. I think that's why the town center code allowed 5 different architectural styles, right? If any of you have driven out, for example, to Disney World, which me and my family go often. In fact, they were there yesterday. On the left at exit 58 on I-4 is an area called Champions Gate. You may have seen it. They have such tight architectural standards that every building looks like the next. Same color, same roof, they're all different buildings, but they all look the same. That to me is ridiculous. That's an extreme example, but I think variety, there's nothing wrong with that. I think this does stand the test of time next to the library, and I don't mean to insult you, Councilmember Beverland. As you recall, when I first met you or first talked to you, I told you that you're the reason I got into kind of local politics, watching you yell at folks, and you started yelling at me, and things were a little different, but I appreciate all that. But I do think that this is very befitting of the area. Is it what we had that we all got taken away that we can't get back? No, it's not that. Is it a beautiful project? Yes, they're going to sell for the same price. They're the same price point, so it's not anything downgraded in my opinion. We all are entitled to our opinion, so I don't fault anybody for their opinion or saying it's downgraded, but this is a project that, much like the first one, I think fits well down there and into the city, and will really start to bring some of the catalysts that we're looking for to start developing the downtown area.
So just one last thing. I know Eric wants to make a comment as well. When I looked at your renderings and I looked at them up close, it's a nice project. It is nice. and there are elements of colonial revival. But when you drive by it or you look at it, I would not say it's a colonial revival, and it's because of those reasons I pointed out earlier, and prominent portico, a porch, a chimney. Those are things that really aren't that difficult to add in certain areas. You don't even have to add them to all of the units. But those are things that would give it that colonial revival that would actually make it meet the code. And I agree with you completely as to everything doesn't need to look the same.
Right.
Nothing has to be Mediterranean revival. You go into Hyde Park, you have a colonial revival, you have a Mediterranean revival house. Things are mixed, but there needs to be a flow. And that area, and it is our duty as a council to create a sense of place for our residents. And so what a developer may feel like can fit there does not necessarily mean that that's what we're going to put there, because I'm creating a legacy for my city as well, and I have a duty to ensure that every building we build, no matter where it is, creates some sort of sense of place and is timeless, no matter what architecture. So that would be my
I
feedback.
fully appreciate that.
Okay, and we'll try and hold those to comments and
Sorry,
all that.
it's hard to ask the questions.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tony, I did have a question. You saw staff's recommendation. Is there a willingness on your part to go back and add elements? And if so, what would they be?
I think there is a willingness with a little bit of hesitation, and it may be the question for the city attorney, but I don't want to delay the project. I think
I'm
that's.
sure there's a way we could phrase the motion that would kick the can down the road, where if they came back and we saw them and they weren't adequate, at that point, the project probably would then get delayed, right? But so before we go on that path, so what is the willingness and what elements?
If it's not delayed, right, so if we don't have to go through the planning board and do it all over again, is that what I'm hearing can happen? We could just make some changes and get to the June 5th hearing and approve?
Yes, you can move forward with it. Huh? You said, yes, you can move forward with it. I don't see that it would need to go back to the planning board. If there are substantial changes, I would always suggest to go back to the planning board. So it all really depends on what is being proposed.
Let me recommend this.
The planning board basically was in lockstep with the staff recommendation.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
We also have a letter.
I'm sorry?
We also have a letter.
Sure.
So let me
Go ahead.
let me
If you would answer the
propose
question.
a compromise, a deal. I'm in the deal business, as some of you are. What if we went back to the drawing board and worked on the porticos, which I heard, and the porches? Right? Change the porticos and the porches to create more of a front porch, sense of place. People are in their front porch. They got some chairs out there. They're drinking their coffee on St. Pete Drive. We come back with that rendering.
I can't sit here and arbitrarily say that does the job, if you're asking me.
Council?
But I would say certainly, we're looking for improvements to it. Respecting you've brought the pattern book and highlighted where it does meet the pattern book. I'm not insensitive to that you've made the investment and feel that it's adequately met the code. I think to Councilman Council Member McGee's point, I think there's a certain sensitivity that we all have about making sure it has that curb appeal. Quite candidly, if you were looking at the site plan and you're looking at what you presented now, and it's throughout the development, but on St. Pete Road, it's like the Cadillac high-end units that you're charging for, and they have all the bells and whistles out front. I think that probably would have served you better. I can only speak for myself. But that being said, yeah, I don't know. That's why I asked the question. I mean, what kind of elements?
It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. It really is.
Well, I mean, look, it might be a slippery slope, but I think in fairness to you, the builder that you had got lost. It was through no fault of your own. And you're right, we fell in love with it because we saw something that we want to see for our downtown. And so, you know what, things happen, kind of on you a little bit to solve, I don't think there's a lack of willingness to recognize, okay, that's not going to happen, but my own bet would be that this probably is not going to either, based on the way it looks right now. And not to disagree with you that you have added elements. It's just not, I guess, the right elements, for lack of a better word. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember?
What I'd like to see is a couple things. As I mentioned to you that I grew up with in a colonial home, one of the key features was what Gabby said about the front porch. Our home had a big front porch. It was welcoming, like what Gabby said. The other thing that Gabby said that really hit home was the fireplace. Our colonial home, even though it was just a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, but we did have a fireplace with a tall chimney, which gave it a lot of character to that home and the neighborhood. So that was just 2 features that if we come back, I'd like to see something like that or some ideas in that area. That's all I have, Mayor.
Do you have any questions of him?
I'm sorry, do I have any questions?
No, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have
Okay.
any questions.
I guess, and I'll ask 2 questions, neither of which you probably won't want to answer, but is there a reason why the other developer pulled out? I know there was a merger and Cal Atlantic got bought by Lennar, and the previous one did fit in their portfolio. It did, and then all of a sudden it didn't. Was it a financial component? Was it?
I think it was just the uniqueness of the project, personally.
What? I'm sorry?
The uniqueness of the project. I mean, you can drive around Pinellas County and you're going to have a hard time finding projects that have site plans like this with the Muse. So that, coupled with the fact that, they're building 40,000 homes a year, this is a 50-lot deal, the guys who make those decisions are going, that's a lot of trouble for a little bit of money.
Gotcha.
That's really the way that I think it went down.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell us who the developer is?
The builder?
Yeah.
Yes, it's Pulte Group.
Okay.
Pulte Group is the nation's 3rd largest builder. They're right behind Lennar and D.R. Horton. For those of you who don't know a little bit about them, they've sold over 21,000 homes in 2017, did $8.5 billion of revenue. They operate under 5 brands. And so they're a reputable, sizable company who knows what they're doing.
They're not for sale right now, are they?
They're not for sale, not that I know of, but everything is for sale. So
This is under the Pulte umbrella, but you say 5 different brands. Is there a particular brand that this is going to be a component of?
I think it's going to be the Pulte or the Centex brand.
And where would that rank in their portfolio?
It's just, so for example, one of them is John Wieland Homes or Custom Home. One of them is Del Webb, so some of you may be familiar with that. They're, age community. So it's just the brands that fit this product.
And I guess then a question that I have, and I kind of concur with everybody, I'm not an expert in these, but I do sell real estate, and, I'm not even talking about the pattern book, but compared to the previous one, this doesn't grab you, this doesn't, and I look at the thing of porch. I saw on that previous one, there was 2 units, I think that was the 6th unit, there were 2 units in the middle that had somewhat of a porch, but to me, the other ones are just stoops or whatever she called it.
The first round of renderings? Or you're saying on these?
The 6-plex that had
Has
the
the
2 units in the
dormers.
middle, well, it's basically this one cut in half. The 2 units in the middle look like they have a
It's just
porch.
because the little kind of connects, the little.
Yeah, it's all perspective. There is a connecting
Well, but
porch
these
there,
two,
really.
the 2 middle, can you bring those up again, Mike?
The 6-plex?
The 6-plex, by chance?
Yeah, so the
The 2
middle
units in the
units.
middle appear to have porches, or no?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay, but
yes, they
but
do.
the 2 on either end do not have porches.
They don't have a covered porch.
Porch or stoop.
They have a stoop. They're not you're not sitting on that thing having coffee.
No, unless
You couldn't put a chair on that, well, you could.
you could, but nobody could get in the front door.
Well, that's not a point. What you have in your hand, what he showed here,
That's half of this, basically.
yeah, well, what he's showing here, the colonial part of it, which I would disagree on a few of them, is the door and the windows. A window doesn't designate the colonial. Now,
Yeah, and I have, this is probably an unfair question, and I'd like to keep it to questions. It's unfair, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Would you buy one of these?
Yes, I like this. I like the downtown area. I think it's got great walkability. It's got good walkability, could have great walkability as you bring more residents. I think the key to the downtown area right now is residents. I think you have the office, you have all the work across the street, you have good restaurants down there, you have good retail, you need residents. You need residents and that want to live in a downtown urbanized area. This is that project.
And I like one more. What's the price point?
They're going to be starting around 260 to 300, and then with options, they'll probably be 280 to 320.
So 275 to 3 1/4, probably.
Somewhere around that vicinity, yes, sir.
What would the options be, like granite countertops and upgraded cabinets, or are there like?
Sure, if you've ever been to a model center.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a new home? Just, sometimes we go to the model centers just for ideas kind of thing, but you walk in, you pick your cabinets,
Yeah.
are they full height, or
Is
they
there anything
maple?
unusual from an option standpoint?
Nothing
or-
unusual, just, making the inside sort of upgraded, upgrade your.
Well, Mayor, one more statement. What really bothers me is that this is not what was presented before, and this is going down. This will not bring anybody to Oldsmar. The other one could bring somebody to Oldsmar. The other first
All right,
vendor.
can we, if there's any questions, because I'm going to get to the public hearing, and then we'll have discussion amongst us, if we could.
I have one more question, Tony.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Did you consider, or would you consider other color schemes as well?
Yes.
Did you, or I guess?
Yeah, we
that was
did,
kind of-
yes and
okay.
yes. I mean, we did, and, we were in sort of the, more of the gray color palette, and this was when we met with staff, and they wanted to see some change, and so this is what we came up with.
When, obviously, you had proposed potentially upgrading the porticos and the porches, et cetera, would you consider colors such as, that are typical of colonial revival, like white with black trim, black shutters, those things that look a bit more period
I think
in
we can-
style and made
sure.
similar to a Mediterranean architecture?
Yes.
I would just maybe ask that as a question and a suggestion, maybe.
And I guess, and then we'll get to the public part of it, but I guess my question would be, obviously, these changes would have to be something that Pulte would have to agree to, correct? Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and I guess then my question would be, from where we were to where we are, were those discussions even had? And
Yes.
if so, did they push back and not want to do them? What I don't want to do is go and prolong this if they're going to say no anyway.
So it depends on how reasonable we are in the partnership.
Well, I mean,
That's what it's going to amount to.
how reasonable we are or they are.
Both, everybody, right? I mean, it's kind of a partnership to that extent.
But somehow, but on your side of it, you guys got to this.
Yes.
And at any point in that discussion, were there porches and some of the things that we're talking about?
No, we didn't take anything away. Certainly, we added to. We got beat up a little bit at the planning board, to be honest with you. So we've had a lot of those discussions. And so, yes, there is a willingness to do this. The concern is the delay.
When does it stop, right?
Yeah.
The delay is problematic, potentially. And so that's the only real concern. But certainly, we can work within reason. I think just, realistically, the other thing is, how do you do something that pleases everybody? I think that's always challenging to do.
And it comes
You
down.
get 5 people and ask them what they like, and you're going to get 5 different answers. So that's always challenging. And so that's what I'm saying, kind of within reason, right? So, and that's why I want to just not say, hey, let's make changes. I want to kind of agree to, let's focus on the porticos and the porches, for example. And then we can narrow it down to there. I can go to my side of the equation, circle the wagons and get that done, bring it back for your consideration. Maybe a different color option, a couple of different color options. Project doesn't get delayed and we're all get what we want and we move on down the road and bring the project to the city. That's kind of the way I'd like to see it happen.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions?
No, lots of comments.
No, public, thanks.
Thank you.
Tony,
Public comments?
John?
Yep. John, I didn't even see you back there. Mr. Buse?
John Buse, 150 State Street. You're not going to probably fix this project the way you guys want. I think what we're missing here is you own the parcel. This is not we could argue all day about the town center code book and whether this is, what style of architecture this is, and none of us will win because it's very opinionated. Even though you've codified it, it's still very difficult to define what colonial revival is. This is not colonial revival by definition, regardless of what the code book says, but I don't think that's what we're you're concerned with and what I'm concerned with. I'm actually, this project dumps out in front of my personal house, so I have a passion for architecture in the city of Oldsmar, and I also live next to this project. So what I'm hearing is you own the property, you want it to be a special project. Tony's job is to maximize profits. You can't fault the guy for that. Pulte's job is definitely to maximize profits.
Yep.
You're asking him to maximize architecture. They're conflicting by definition. So unfortunately for him, he showed us what appeared to be a much more upgraded, beautiful product. Regardless of if you like the style Mediterranean Revival, it had an appearance that looked upscale. My bigger problem actually is the buildings are too complicated to be called Colonial Revival. You should strip away some of the nonsense that's in there and add some elements that cause it to look better. But my real problem is that the streetscape on St. Pete Drive is where I'm gonna have a lot of heartburn and be up here and in front of you guys every time this comes up, because that is not a streetscape that will provide for what you've spent and I've spent the past 20 years in the city trying to create. And I don't think that Tony, with all due respect, or Pulte would be able to produce that. It's just not in their wheelhouse. No matter how much pushing you did, they will probably walk when you try to get two different product types, one at St. Pete Drive and one in the back. As Tony mentioned, 50 units to them is a gnat. You know, they're trying to swat off their leg, and they like bigger projects. So I just fundamentally think we're asking him to do some things that are going to be quite difficult. I'm not speaking for him or Pulte, but I know the production housing business, as you all know. So I don't want to give the guy any kind of false direction here, but I hear you asking him to provide something that's going to come back here in 2 weeks or a month and
He'll never provide it.
and not fit the bill. So we're wasting each other's time. So I would be remiss if I didn't. I warned you guys I'd be up here at any project comes up that I think is not architecturally stimulating, and here we are. So I just want to remind you that your project, you own the parcel. This is a very different set of circumstances than if you didn't own the parcel and had to argue about codified documents. This is do you like the project and do you like the appearance or do you not? And then how do you direct him? Because what I've heard today is not going to necessarily direct him into an area that I think you'll be happy with, mainly because of the State Street. Frankly, you could dumb down these elevations in the other units behind the front, and they're in mews. There's a mews. You're barely going to see the front elevation. So we're up here talking about some things that visually will be very difficult to see that elevation because they're two facing each other, and there'll be a mews that's very narrow. He's narrowed them up. So you wouldn't have the appearance. Frankly, it could be a blank wall with some paint and some shutters, and it would look just as attractive because they're just not, that's not where you should put the money. The money needs to be out on State Street, I'm sorry, St. Pete Drive. So when you have a 3-story building that was Mediterranean Revival, it immediately gave a sense of presence to the street. And that's probably what you liked more than the Mediterranean Revival, is the sense of presence, and this doesn't have that same feeling. So my 2 cents are, the majority of the buildings they can be less than what you've seen. I know that's weirdly hard to accept, but they can be stripped out so they look good. Sometimes less is more. And how do you treat the front? That's a question for him, because I'm sure Pulte won't necessarily take kindly to having 2 different product types on the same parcel. But again, you own the parcel, so if you really want to hold out for great architecture, then that's the tough decision.
Yeah, and I mean, that was my question. I don't want to go down this path if Pulte's not going to be willing to make some of these concessions, whether it's to the ones on the front or, yeah, you made some very good points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Yep, Dave?
Dave Tilkey, 505 Arlington Avenue East. I'm very glad John went before me because he was quite eloquent on many of the points that I'm going to follow up with. One item I did want to comment on, Tony, the developer made a comment that he got beat up at the planning board. And the planning board made a lot of comments, but I thought tonight we would come here and see that they had addressed some of the planning board comments before it got to first reading. And it doesn't seem like any of that was done. You know, over the years, the city acquired all these properties from St. Pete Drive and to the backside of all those lots up there, put them all together, vacated all the right-of-ways down through there so they would have large parcels to then be able to barter with developers for bigger projects, nicer projects, and not be dealing with just individual lots. So this was all put together so that we, the city, would have control over our destiny down in that area, and we could get what we needed down there, what we wanted down there. This project, as it came to us today versus what was here before, has obviously scaled back. The height of the buildings has gone down. The square footage of the bigger units, the more expensive units, the higher end units has gone down by over 300 square feet. We have no clue what the back of these buildings look like. And I'm going to talk to John's point about the front on St. Pete Drive, what that looks like. But what about the back of the units? There's people back on Arlington that are going to be looking in the back of the units, and we do not have a clue what they look like. It could be a plain blank wall with huge balconies to where everybody's looking in the residential area's backyard. We don't know. Something the planning board brought up. I thought we would see rear elevations today, and I guess those aren't available yet. But that's very important. As John said, that St. Pete Drive front, that's what everybody's going to see. The St. Pete Drive, 10 units, and the back of the 10 units in the back is what most people are going to see other than the residents that are in there. I don't know that when the town center plan was developed for St. Pete Drive and State Street, that anybody really envisioned a pure multifamily building there. I think most of it was always envisioned as being mixed use, as some of the units have gone in as. Those units at front on St. Pete Drive with the 10-foot setback, it puts their front door 10 foot from the parking bumpers of the diagonal parking spaces out there on St. Pete Drive. It looks pretty in the picture, but it's not like that. You've got the sidewalk, you're going to have a very, very little green space, and then the building. The front of the building, to me, and I'm going to use a term that I just made up about 15 minutes ago, you're talking colonial revival. To me, it looks like colonial remodel, where up north, they would take an old building and slap some aluminum siding on it and throw some features on it and say it's now a colonial building. That's what that looks like to me. There's no grand columns. Many of the other features just aren't there. Putting two little columns on each side of the front door does not make it colonial revival. And it doesn't make it something that we want fronting on St. Pete Drive, something that we want to be grand next to the library, which so much effort went into to make it a grand building, kind of the anchor of that end of the downtown. It just doesn't fit there. The old design did fit with the barrel tiles on the roof. Now this has shingles, which does meet the colonial revival thing, the shingle roof versus the tile, but it sure did fit in better with the library. As John alluded to, the city owns that property. The city acquired all these properties, we would have control. It's being developed under a development agreement, which means you have control. If Pulte doesn't, or whoever doesn't like having to make a change to a facade, should not be your concern now. Your concern should be, what is it we want on one of our main streets for the city? Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else want to address the council? Last chance. Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. For the purpose of discussion, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to what?
Yeah, what's the
Motion to
motion?
approve the staff recommendation.
Okay, that's what I need to find out. That was your motion?
Yep.
Okay.
So we can discuss.
Just for discussion.
Second?
Second. Discussion.
Well, first of all, if this never comes back to us, shoot us in the head.
Well, I'm not sure crazy about that.
They go back and then the planning, or the planning department, they work something around. It's over with. You can say we can make changes in our second, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. When it comes back, it's gonna come back for your okay.
Your contention is that we wouldn't vote against it at the second?
It never has happened that way. I've been doing this for, what, 28 years? It has never happened. When it comes back, it gets okay.
I'm not afraid to, whether, depending on how, I don't know how I'm going to vote tonight, but I'm not opposed to saying no the next time if it still doesn't need.
Either, because I'm opposed.
Okay.
How do you feel?
Gabby?
I made my comments about the architecture and sense of place. It doesn't have it for me. And I'm certainly biased right now just from coming back from where I did, but the place that I went, it took them 40 years to turn a profit. 40 years, family owned, 40 years to turn a profit, and now people are paying over $1,000 a night to stay there. And it's because of the architecture and the sense of place that that building created for that city. And so I disagree with the comments about, well, this is what we get because we need to be realistic. Well, then my realism is we own it and we hold on as Oldsmar continues to grow, because I can tell you one of my best friends is buying one of the townhouses there on the water, doing all the upgrades and, young, ready to move into Oldsmar. And I could tell you that she wouldn't buy that one. So I think, I'm hopeful, I was hopeful that, with some changes, potentially, it could have the elements that would be beautiful. But I do appreciate John's comments, not only as a builder and a resident, but also as the owner of the property across the street. And obviously what is built here will probably also determine what he builds in the future there as well. And I remember the original renderings were beautiful and really flow well with the library and some of the other buildings. It's just, I Googled during the meeting, and I hate to say this because when I look at it up close, there are some nice elements, but I Googled Aventine because I thought, why is that? I don't know if it kind of looks like the Aventine over here, if you take off the columns. And I Googled it, and it was kind of weird, the color and the siding, and I thought, that's not what I want in my downtown. So,
We can still have discussion. Let me just get some other input.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have a couple of thoughts. My greatest concern in this project is St. Pete Drive. If the developer could come back with new elevations, it's not to say I don't care what the rest of it looks like. I don't think it's, I don't think it's that harsh for it to be tucked inside there, quite candidly. But certainly, if there were a real effort to improve what would be showing on St. Pete Drive, that to me would make all the difference. Because even in the very back end of it, you have a parking lot, you have that common area, so there is some space in the back. Presumably there will be, some other buffering that takes place as well. But my concern is along St. Pete Drive. I agree with Gabby as it relates to, look, we need to make St. Pete Drive really desirable, and that is important. And I will tell you this, I had a conversation the other day with the people at Bayside Terrace. So this is something I don't understand, and I'm not in the development business, okay? I do understand that certain builders, they know what works for them, they know their model, and this is their model or within their range, I guess. But Bayside Terrace is in a similar price point, if not higher, I think. I think it is higher. And I spoke to them last week, and of the 164 homes they have out there, 64 of them are already under contract.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's going so fast out there.
And that was before they went vertical.
And so, granted, I know it's on the water, and I'm not dismissing
amenities,
that,
though.
but all those units aren't on the water.
No.
They're near the water.
Yeah.
So I would say that I would think, granted, it's 50 units, which makes it less attractive probably to a large builder, but the fact that new development is going like that, that to me would suggest to others in the space, it's a safer bet than it's just in the middle of nowhere and nothing's going on, right? But so yeah, my my thoughts on it would be, if there's not able to make changes that really have an impact on what's on St. Pete Drive, then I don't know that there's much purpose in going forward. However, I would say if that was left open with this motion, and when it comes back, that's done, at least it gives them an opportunity to try to save the project. If it doesn't work for them, it doesn't work for them, and, you know, they should expect that the outcome is going to be, I don't, with all due respect, I don't agree with Councilmember Beaverland that if it's allowed to do that, that it automatically is going to pass. I just don't think that support sits here on this council. And so maybe it's a unique situation, and it is a unique situation. That's our downtown, which we've been working on for 100 years, you know. So that being said, I mean, that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
Councilmember Sraki.
Couple things. Thank you, Mayor. The first thing is the positives. I would like to see more people living in that area, and I would like to see that tax revenue coming into the city. That's the positive. The negative thing that I don't like about the whole site plan is everything looks crunched, very small. No room for cars, not a lot of room for parking. That's the thing that bothers me the most about the site plan. I don't like that there is no room to move or people to grow, kids to play, people to move around. I don't see that when I keep looking at this site plan. That's the only thing negative. But again, the positives is that area does need people to move in and live there.
Ultimately, yeah.
Yep.
And to that point, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we do need someone to make the first move. It's like first money in is always the biggest risk.
And
You know,
that was kind of going to be my,
But not at full compromise, but first money in it's always the biggest.
well, and I think that was going to be a couple of comments. You know, the renderings, you know, as we've discussed, you know, it does look like a very long sidewalk, you know, with a lot of grass out there, and we know that's not going to be the case along St. Pete Drive. Having said that, to Vice Mayor Seidel's point, I think when we looked at this the last time, and without rehashing the cost of the property that we were charging for the property, part of the discussion that we had that went along with the price of that is that, to your point, if we put a quality product on there, it will be the catalyst for other development, John's property, everything that goes along there. And I don't know that this is that catalyst, and I don't know that you can sex this thing up in its present format acceptable to Pulte and Tony to be that catalyst, to be the next one down the street. And to your point about Bayside Terrace, I see that one, you know, one of my offices in downtown Dunedin, they're popping these things up all over, but they have, you know, a lot of character, and people are willing to pay a little bit, you know, more per square foot to get the product that they want. So, you know, I concur with a lot of the things that everybody has said. I think how it looks along St. Pete Drive is definitely something. And to John's point, maybe it's probably a combination of things, but maybe it is the fact that the 3-story really did kind of have a wow factor to it, you know, along there.
Mayor?
So, yeah.
Ask yourself this: is this going to enhance St. Pete Drive and the library?
And future development.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, no offense to Countryside Key or anything like that, but it's very similar to Countryside Key. You know, and I've seen those things are on the market for $160,000. You know, we have some other developments down by where your office used to be, Eric, you know.
Yeah, and I would say, I mean, the price point even on Bayside Terrace is been in the 300s.
Yeah.
And they get full amenities, affinity pool, kayak launch, you name it. So if you're not going to have
Clubhouse.
those kind of amenities to attract young business professionals, you better have a really good looking product to attract them.
Or a walkable downtown.
Yeah, but that will help make it a walkable downtown.
Any other
That's the
discussion?
start.
No.
Thought?
Go for the vote.
Yep. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Seitel?
Oh, can we just clarify the motion?
The motion is to approve based upon staff recommendation.
Thank you.
Which was to go work with staff on adding additional elements.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Vice Mayor Seitel?
Yes.
Councilmember Saraki?
Yes.
Councilmember McGee?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Thank you, Councilmember Beaverland. Mayor Beavis?
Nope.
Motion to approve the amendment to the development agreement between Oldsmar Towns LLC and the City of Oldsmar pursuant to Section 14.7 of Land Development Code, subject to the applicant providing additional elements to the architectural identified as colonial revival, passes with 3 votes for and 2 against. Councilmember Beverland and Mayor Beavis dissenting.
We're not downgrading the city.
Thank you. Next item, oh, sorry, this is your department.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 13, request council approval to amend the purchase and sale agreement between city and
I'm so
Oldsmar
sorry.
Towns LLC.
I'm sorry.
Did you announce the second hearing? and
Oh, I'm sorry,
when-
I can hear you. Yeah, he did it at the
I did in
beginning.
my comments.
Beginning.
All right, I'll start all over again. This is item 13, request council approval to amend the purchase and sale agreement between the city and Oldsmar Towns LLC. This is separate from but related to the development agreement we just heard by council and represents the terms and conditions under which we will convey the property referenced in the prior agenda item to our development partners, Oldsmar Towns LLC. Again, Tony Tanico is here to represent Oldsmar Towns. This is the second time we have been requested to amend the purchase and sale agreement. This too was made necessary by the change in builder. The amendment will affect many things, most significantly the schedule. However, two items are being presented in the amendment itself. They are the inspection period, which will be extended to June 12th, and the site plan, which has been revised. The city attorney has reviewed the amendment, and his comments have been addressed, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. A motion for discussion?
So moved?
Second?
Second?
Discussion on this item? I guess my question is, how do the timeframes with this component line up with what we just approved 3-2 on the previous one with the second hearing?
Essentially, since most of the schedule are based on intervals, it bumps it back. I think the most important date would be the closing date, which is now, if this is approved, would go to December 26th. But this is a schedule of all, do you see how they're laid out in terms of, they're not date certains, they're 45 days after X, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So it, in summary, it will further delay it, but not drastically.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
Yeah,
Discussion?
I want a point of clarification. If this is approved, but however, in the future, at the second hearing, that's not approved, then this becomes void, correct?
No, he'll ask for another extension.
That's not
No,
my
no,
point.
no, no,
I'm
no,
missing
no.
it.
It's a question for Tom. right?
Tom?
Tom?
Yeah, my advice to you on this is to maybe postpone this agenda item so there's no misunderstanding as to what is happening at the second reading. I mean, if you approve the development agreement on the second reading, you can approve the second amendment at the same time. I will tell you that there is an inspection period that will probably expire before then, but obviously, you can make any amendments that you want to the purchase and sale agreement at the second reading. So my advice to you is to postpone this so that you can address them both at the same time.
We have a motion, we need to vote on that and then make a motion to postpone it? Or
Well, we're still under discussion. How does that, what's the impact of the inspection period deadline passing?
Well, that, he wants the opportunity to make sure that everything else is lined up. You know, whatever the things are that he's trying to line up, financing or whatever, and maybe Tony can stand up and tell you, you know, what the necessity is to extend it, what he's doing in that time frame. But it's extending the inspection period to June 12th. And then also, there's language in paragraph 4 relative to, further ratification by the city council. So I'd ask Tony, how important that inspection date is.
Mr. Mayor?
Tony?
The answer is super important, and the perfect truth is we'll have to cancel the contract if we don't extend it. Now, with that said, if we come back on June 5th and we don't get the positive vote, then we'll also cancel the contract at that time. So I don't think there's any risk in the city's part, because what we'll be left with at that point, let's just say that the vote goes no on the 5th, we're left with basically a development agreement that we can't fulfill, right? The existing development agreement has the 3-story prior product in there. So our obligation would be to build that, which obviously we can't do. So there'd be no reason for us to continue. So the reality is this inspection period gets us to the point where we need to get this approval, and then start the permit period and protect our deposit along the way. And so it's needed. But if we extend it and we get the no vote, then we'll cancel the contract at that time. That's the way it will work.
What is the date of the inspection period now? When does it end?
May 29th.
May 29th.
Yeah, so it's 6 days prior to the hearing, which was the reason for the request for the extension, to get us to the second and final hearing, and then give us a few days afterwards to deal with potentially any issues.
Extensions to June 12th.
What's the schedule?
So Tom, can you state your thought again, please, if you could? Because sometimes it almost sounds like it's irrelevant to do this because of the next hearing, but.
How much money is on deposit in escrow right now?
5 or 10,000, I think.
Okay. So if you postpone it to the next meeting, obviously, he's going to terminate the contract, his deposit will have to be refunded. Then obviously you can enter into a subsequent contract if you wanted to do that. And that'll give you a little bit more leeway. It will not be helpful to Tony, obviously, but it would put you in the best place, so that you don't have to worry about a challenge as to moving forward on the contract when the development agreement has not been approved.
Okay.
And so your recommendation is still to
Postpone it.
And then it would the inspection period would then expire on the current date, which was May
29th.
29th.
On the current contract.
Huh?
But that's the inspection period on the current contract. So if we don't approve to extend it, then essentially if we agree at the next meeting, then we would just go into a new contract with them, with a new inspection period, et cetera. Yes?
Correct.
I'm not sure we have a lot of appetite to do that.
Because?
It's just the delays again. I mean, so we start a new contract. We just talked about the timing was important to us. June 5th is the day we'd like to come and get that final decision. And so when we cancel contracts or new contracts, we're opening up sort of Pandora's box again. In my mind, on the negotiation, on the timeline, on the whole process again. So that's why.
Comment?
I mean, the extension date is the 12th. I mean, 7 days after we would vote on it? So on the 12th, correct, it would terminate if.
Well, it may terminate sooner right.
Essentially, if we vote no at the next meeting, then he has 7 days till the contract essentially expires, correct?
Not the contract,
The inspection.
his right to the inspection
The
period.
amendment, yes.
Now, what I'm hearing, and Tom, tell me if I'm wrong here, is all Tony's asking to do is, we have a contract right now for purchase and sale. It contains the inspection period, which is a right of his, till May 29th, simply to try and cover the base to make sure there was no, yes, it looks strange because it's another request. He's asking for us to provide him enough time to clear the other thing. The development agreement and the purchase and sale are tied to each other. So all he wanted was enough time for the development agreement to be heard and decided one way or the other. I don't really see the problem with approving this for the extension, because all we're doing is giving you guys enough time to decide if it's going to happen anyway. And we'd be asking him to walk away from that right if we don't extend the inspection period through this amendment. Then he could still do it, but it's his choice to walk away from the inspection period or the inspection right. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to him, nor do I think would he do it.
Yeah, and I'd tend to agree, especially since it passed 3-2 on the first reading. It's kind of silly for us to not extend it. They're, as you said, they're tied together, so
Right.
it'd be silly to hear the second hearing June 5th and the inspection period ends on the 29th. That's.
He was just trying to cover the base.
Yep.
Tom, you got any thoughts on that?
No, you have that, obviously that option, and that's what the request is tonight.
Okay.
But it's my point is, all he's asking for, if we deny the extension, the inspection period component of the existing contract no longer becomes his right. And I'm saying, all he was doing was saying, give me enough time to maintain the right to inspect the property. If you guys vote against the development agreement on the 5th, it's a moot point anyway.
And I guess to this question, I'll ask it, and obviously I do in residential and commercial real estate, but when we say inspection period,
It's really,
it's really due diligence.
Yeah, basically due diligence period, whatever.
Because the property hasn't changed in 15 years, so whatever was there the last time, the property hasn't changed, so to use the word inspection.
Another reason why
But that's what the agreement.
Due diligence, so.
It's due diligence.
Motion was for the approval.
Okay, motion, and who was the second?
Eric, me.
That's too far back for them to remember.
No.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
4-1.
Busy.
Work on it.
You're ending up
Come
playing
on,
the
you can
game.
do it.
What's that?
Thank you,
Ending up
everyone.
playing a game. My opinion. You're
is what
playing
it
a
is.
It
game.
might be a waste of our time, it may not be, we'll find out.
Council and councils are passed, so.
Still playing a game.
Next item, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 14 is award 2018-002 RFP for HVAC system repairs. I'm very excited about this one. I recommend that council award contract 2018-002 RFP to Oldsmar Enterprise Incorporated, DBA doing business as Oldsmar Air Conditioning of Oldsmar, Florida, for HVAC system repairs and ongoing services. A total of 2 proposals were received and evaluated by city staff. The evaluation committee ranked the proposals and unanimously recommended full award to Oldsmar Enterprise, DBA Oldsmar Air Conditioning. The contract award involves the repairs and upgrades of various HVAC systems at several city facilities which are desperately needed. The contract also allows for ongoing HVAC service and repairs as needed. Currently, immediate repairs are needed at the fire rescue station and municipal service center, council chambers, and city hall, and both Mr. and Mrs. Pusateri are here. They're still awake. And we recommend approval for sure.
Can we do it without the fire station? Oh, that's kind of anticlimactic because Dean's not there.
Would you like a motion, Mr. Mayor?
Oldsmar business, by the way,
Oldsmar
if the
business.
title didn't give it away, I'm sorry.
They are here if you have any questions of the,
Do you need a motion?
yeah,
So move.
Second?
motion and a second. Any discussion? I know we were in desperate repair. One of them is this one, right?
This is one of them, fire station. Eric's on it. He knows he knows
Yep.
what we need.
Okay. What's,
And motion in a second.
yeah, motion and a second, and the time, I see the time frame, but time frame to start, is there a startup time?
As soon as we can give him a notice to proceed.
Okay.
We give him a purchase.
Fairly
order.
quick? Huh?
He's,
I mean, quick, I'm not
He'll
saying.
get
that-
Started.
Not tomorrow, but.
Eric brought his tools with him, so.
He didn't think it was going to take this long.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. You're free to go now if you'd like. Check the Lightning game, although they're winning 1-0. 3-0. Okay, city clerk.
I don't have anything.
Well, you don't have anything. City council, consider canceling the first regular council meeting in July, which falls on and about the July 4th weekend. Any discussion on that? If not, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any thoughts? Any firework parties? Anything? Fireworks at Gary's house? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I ought to vote no just to vote.
Well, just because
You're
that's who
he's
you
on a
are.
roll.
You're, yeah.
Thank you,
You're the
Gabby,
rebel
for
in the
bringing it
crowd.
back to life.
How did you vote?
I voted yes.
Okay.
Good. Just trying to help Ann out, that's all. Council comments? We'll start with Mr. Beaverly. Councilmember McGee?
I would just make one comment, and not to go into the downtown and everything that's happening there, and unfortunately Tony already left, but when people say, like, it is what it is, or we have to be realistic, there's nothing there now, or even downtown, oh, it's good for apartments and nothing else. And I remember I talked to Al about this, and I've mentioned this before, but if you look at where Armature Works is in Tampa, and I know some of you have been there now, and Eulalie, if you've ever eaten dinner there or been to the Waterworks Park in Tampa, that was nowhere zone in Tampa. That corner of the river, nobody went there. It was too far from downtown. There was no nice sidewalks or walkability down to that end of the river. Why would anybody go there? There was nothing there, and there was no way to get there. Everything was in downtown. But the city had the wherewithal and the foresight to say, you know what? I think we can invest here. We can put in a nice park. We're going to put some money in. We're going to dredge up the springs here. We're going to clean it up. And we have some old buildings, and we're going to offer them up for a deal. And we're going to put it out there for a bid, and whoever brings us the best idea, we're going to award it to them. And because they made that investment in that nowhere zone and were creative in the process, they got Eulalie, and then they got Beck, and then they got Armature Works, and now they're getting a boutique hotel, and they redid the Riverwalk and the walkability.
And residential, there's quite a bit
And
of
residential, and I will tell you that if you ever go there, even on a Tuesday in the middle of the week, it is the most populated part of the entire city of Tampa on any given day, more than downtown.
Oh, yeah, but with the exception of a hockey game, the
The
sidewalks
place
roll up.
that was always nowhere zone. And so anybody that comes in and says, oh, this is all it is today, or, I mean, I also say that because we have to get creative in ourselves, and we have to think differently, and we can't just expect that if we kind of do the same thing or go through the same process, or even hiring a company like CBRE, I mean, they're just marketing it for us, but there's really not a different, creative, unique process there. I think I just mention it so we can all think differently and look to other cities too that have done a really good job at turning nowhere zones into the most populated part of their city, and a place that everybody wants to go and live and be. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Oldsmar doesn't have any nowhere zones.
That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Saraki?
Mayor, I have nothing tonight. Pass.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you.
I feel pressure now. I'm just crossing stuff off my list. I guess just a couple quick things. Hats off to the Garden Club for all the years of service. I mean, they've really, for a long time, stuck with the city, and so it's worth mentioning to them. Congratulations once again on the innovation team. I think that is like an exciting thing to see of what's about to come. And the last thing, which is a very, very important thing, go Bolts.
Oh.
3-1? What period? Huh? 3-0, what period? Second. Okay, cool.
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Killing Deb
Thank you.
tonight. She's-
Yeah, I know. I can't believe you're still here. There's no pictures to take. Just saying. Consider cancel, oh, we already did that. I don't have a lot. Welcome, Chip. Thank you. Good to see you lose that tie, if you could. That'd be great. You're putting a lot of pressure on us up here. Oh, look at Felicia. We expect to see you out there at the parks in the tie, right? Planting
In August.
In August.
August, no less, yeah.
What are the chances of switching those to LED lights? Do we know what those are?
They are LED lights.
Are they?
That's why they're so freaking bright in my head. Glows.
I thought they might be halogen, which is why your head's glowing and they make them
They're
hot.
LEDs.
Do we know what?
I have no idea.
I just wondered.
I'll find out, though.
No, I'm just curious. So I don't really have anything else. Yes, the Garden Club, that's great. They did a lot of work. I don't know how much they put into scholarships. I don't know what the amount was.
Amber and I have been sponsors of their fundraiser for I don't know how many years now, every year.
For the kids to go to camp?
Yep, and every year they sent more kids.
Do you have any idea what it is?
What the sponsorship is, or how many kids they've sent?
Well, they said like 10, yeah,
Usually 7 or 8.
they sent.
Mhm.
Okay. There was a reason for my question, but I'll hold it. I don't have anything else. Go Bolts, and hope to see you at our Memorial Day ceremony down there at the park. It's always great. You guys do a great job. Looking forward to learn how to fold a flag. I can't fold a fitted sheet, so I know I'll never be able to fold the flag. So, but if there's nothing else, how you like all the flowers? Are you really allergic to roses?
Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday, you get to keep the rest.
Anything else? Tom, you got anything for the good of the cause? Nope.
Where did the flowers go?
Because you want to take one home to your lovely wife.
He is, he goes, I'm taking one home.